Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has a fox family in rwby. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Flux Casey and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. In the valley on the eastern edge of the kingdom of Atlas lived 3 farmers. Their names were Bernie, Blaine and Brandon, and they were the foulest of men. These farmers had done well for themselves, each of them producing more food for the kingdom than any other farm. It could be said that any man, woman or child in the kingdom has eaten food provided by all 3 at least once. And most were fed without the farmers ever knowing about it. Under the valley on the eastern edge of the kingdom of Atlas lived a great many Franus. To you or me, the 8 families living there would be the strangest people you ever saw. People with the features of animals. Dog ears, cat ears, rabbit ears, whiskers, one even with a long striped tail. And there was one among this mismatched mob who had an appearance all his own. Sunshine yellow hair, 2 pointed ears atop his head, 3 whiskers on each cheek, and a fox-like grin that gave away his species. Dressed in a ragged old brown tailcoat, this was the Franus' leader. And his name was Naruto. Naruto was younger than you may expect. Nearing his 17th year of life, looking after this community of animal-like people was a great amount of responsibility. It was not as if he were the eldest there. There were some in their 2nd decade, some their 3rd. But these people were parents. Their own young children had to be the priority. But Naruto was alone. No parents, no children, no siblings. No family. And because of this, Naruto decided to himself that all of these people, every single one of them was a member of his family and he would do anything to keep them safe and happy. And this leads us to what makes Naruto the best leader that the small Franus community could ask for. When Naruto the fox decided he would do something, he followed through no matter what. The farmers were heartless men and refused to feed the Franus, no matter what was offered. Work, trade or pay, the 3 would say as though with one voice no, they would say the next time the Franus came calling, they would be met by shotguns. That was fine by Naruto's view. If the men would not trade like civilized folk, the farmers would be the ones losing out. The Franus needed that food and they would get it. And so, as dark would fall on the city, Naruto the fox would creep onto the farms, into the henhouses, the sheep pens, the pigsties, the wheat, corn and rice fields, and out would come a multitude of mirror images of Naruto, each carrying an animal or yield of crops. And so it would go. For weeks, for months, the Franus would eat happily, and the farmers would be none the wiser. Until one night it was ended by the roar of a shotgun blast. Even if he hadn't heard the gunfire, Naruto would have known one of his doppelgangers was destroyed by it. The doubles that were furthest from the farmhouse ran with whatever they could carry. The closer ones made for the house to keep the enraged farmer Bernie busy. Naruto escaped once again. But they were onto him now. They would be ready for him if he tried again. Little did he know, this would be the least of his problems. Those animals. Bernie yelled as he stormed into Blaine's home, slamming the door behind him. Swole father who art in the iron temple, swole be thy frame, another voice echoed around the barely furnished home, interspersed with grunts of effort. Thy swoldom come, thy will be done in the deadlift as well as in the squat rack. Blaine you meathead. Get out here. We have a problem. Bernie yelled louder. I am in the middle of worship, you heathen. I knew you to be an agent of Brokey. The voice yelled back. Give us this day our daily way, he continued. Oh, for the love of Bernie hated when Blaine got like this, and this might have been the worst time for it. Still, there wasn't much Bernie could do about it. The last time he tried to interrupt the muscle-bound farmers' worship he got put through a wall. And then another wall. Instead he found his way to where Blaine was training and waited for him to finish. For thine is the swoldom, the power clean, and the glute ham raise. Forever and ever. Wayman. Blaine spoke, finishing his prayer and lowering a barbell, with a disturbing amount of weight on it, to the floor. Now, what was it you wanted? Through grinding teeth, Bernie told him. I just caught one of those damn beasts stealing our livestock. Dozens of our animals gone to feed those creatures. Dozens? Blaine asked with raised eyebrows. I feel conflicted. To carry so many animals he must be a follower of the ways of Broden like myself. Tell me, how were his delts? His traps? Wah Bernie muttered confused. What the hell are you talking about? He wasn't a meathead like you. He was skinny. He just made copies of himself somehow. Blaine was suddenly outraged, much to Bernie's relief as he was finally acting like a normal person would. Sort of. A true agent of Brokey. Not even lifting the animals himself. Does he not realize the sweet gains he could be making? The bodybuilding farmer headed towards the mantelpiece and retrieved his prized possession. His old hunting shotmas, Earthshaper. It's Franus season. Odd, I hate your shitty one-liners. After fetching Brandon who had remained blissfully unaware of everything up to this point, the 3 farmers began their search for the thieving Franus. They searched through each of their lands, through their barns and chicken coops, up and down both sides of the valley and back again. It was Bernie who found their prey first. Carrying a pig and heading up the hill to the innermost of the outer walls, the blonde fox Franus was slow and easily caught. A shotgun blast shredded the pig in his arms, but the blonde himself vanished in a puff of smoke. "Damn it," Bernie yelled. "He must be around here somewhere." He was running back to his hovel. "Brandon, start digging." "Where?" "Look around. Their hideout could be anywhere." Brandon whined. "I have a solution," Blaine interjected, raising his shotmiss. Earthshaper was a brilliantly simple weapon on the face of it. Technically speaking, it was the shape and size of a two-handed mace, but its wielder could swing it comfortably with one. Made entirely of high-carbon steel, the shaft was thick and inlaid with designs of doves in white gold. The shaft was capable of being reconfigured into a traditional shotgun shape for easy wielding when a ranged weapon is more appropriate. The head of the mace was spherical save for the four flanges equidistant from each other and the hole at the top that served as the barrel. The handle was wrapped in leather for a more comfortable grip, interrupted only by the trigger for the shotgun mode. Opening the shotmiss's chamber, Blaine retrieved the dust rounds loaded inside and replaced them with a dust crystal of an earthy brown color that he carved himself to fit. With a swing of his arm, he closed Earthshaper with one hand. And so this disgraceful cardio comes to an end. Blaine breathed as he slammed the head of Earthshaper perpendicular to the hill, burying it by sheer strength a foot into the soil. "And I can find those misguided Franus and show them the true glory of sweet gains." Pressing down on the shaft, he aimed the barrel of the shotmiss directly away from the group of farmers. Pulling back his right hand, he whispered "Broad be praised." Then thrust forward. As his palm impacted the handle end of the Earthshaper, the section of hill in front of the farmers appeared to vanish as a wave of sound and pressure hit them all at once. Blaine was unaffected. Brandon and Bernie, civilian through and through, were not. Both farmers were knocked off their feet, Brandon rolling down the hill before coming to a stop. Blaine looked over his handiwork. The Earthshaper was quite well named. It did not destroy anything. Just reshaped it to its wielder's will. The effect of the Earthshaper when used with an earth dust crystal is to compress the materials in the direction the barrel is pointing, increasing the density of the surrounding area to make room for a big open space. Looking into the hollow he had created, Blaine spotted something strange. Small black shapes with flecks of white dissolving into ash. Bernie grumbled to himself as he returned to his feet. What the foo, his tirade was ended before it could begin as Blaine grabbed him by the shirt. "Go home. Now." Bernie wasn't exactly the type to listen to orders. "Like fuck, I'm going home until," once again, he was stopped as Blaine let go of his shirt to grab his face and pointed it in the direction of the hole. Where more shapes were appearing. Shapes with white masks and hateful red eyes. The blood visibly drained from Bernie's face. Blaine turned Bernie to face the muscular retired huntsman again. "Go get Brandon. Go together to your house. Barricade as well as you can and keep your shotgun on hand." "Got it?" Blaine half asked, half ordered. Bernie nodded as Blaine let go of him and was off like a shot, picking Brandon up by the arm and running. Blaine meanwhile was pulling out and opening his scroll as quickly as he could. Pulling up the emergency contact feed, he input his old authorization code and sent the message of a code black with his coordinates. By the time he had retrieved Earthshaper and reloaded it with regular dust rounds, the alarms were already sounding. More and more shapes were appearing in the crater. They were easy to identify. Molarts. Mole-like grim. Almost always small in stature, they were phenomenal diggers and had been the creatures most often responsible for sabotaging human fortifications during grim incursions. Each paw had a half-dozen shovel-like claws, giving them the ability to practically swim through dirt. They were actually Blaine's specialty. He was most often used as a sapper. Capable of reshaping an area, he could crush Molard and their tunnels with a single blast of Earthshaper in his heyday. That might even be what he had done here purely by accident. It wouldn't surprise him if the Molard were there to create an incursion point for larger Grim. "It's been a long time since I had a good round of whack-a-Molard." Unseen by both man and Grim, a blonde Franus disappeared into smoke. "Bullets." Naruto gasped as his doppelganger's memories flowed into him. "Out. Everyone out, now." He shouted at the gathering Franus. "What's happening?" A female dog Franus asked as she held her children close. "We need to leave. It's not safe in here anymore." He half explained as he started guiding people to the exit. "Get outside and get to high ground as fast as you can and keep moving away from the outer walls." "This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid." Naruto chanted to himself as he headed towards the outer wall. He had left a few doppelgangers to watch over the other Franus, but he knew they would be relatively safe. If it was Molarts, they were probably the only ones there. And if they were that many under the wall, that meant they hadn't gotten any further. Probably. Likely enough that he felt he had to do something to help at the wall. This was protecting his family too. Ha 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 ha. Blaine laughed maniacally as he slammed his ridiculously heavy mace into anything that caught his eye. Sometimes it was a molar that had come up to attack him. More often it was a crack in the super compactor earth from one of the other times he had struck it, creating more of them. You molarts are fools. Following the way of Brokey with your constant earth swimming cardio. You seek embrace within his lean, athletic bosom. But not even he shall accept Grim within his treadmill-filled domain. Really, he was having the time of his life. Which may explain how he missed the molart that had appeared directly behind him, ready to rip out his spine. Not on my watch, dirt mouse. A scratchy voice shouted. Blaine turned, mace raised to strike, but to his surprise, he found himself looking down at a molart, getting its head crushed between two identical dropkicking Fronis. Upon hitting the ground, both blonde fox men burst into smoke. Properly looking around himself for the first time since his battle started, Blaine saw something he never would have expected. 24 copies of the fox Fronis they had been hunting were surrounding him. And helping to fight back the Grim. Temporary truce. One of them asked, Blaine unable to tell whether it was the original or not. You can go back to trying to kill me after we deal with this. Blaine shook his head. He had no intention of killing the Fronis. But he could explain that later. For now, there was a pest problem to deal with. Molart, pronounced molart. Mole variety of Grim. Digging near their habitats is a bad idea. Small but swarms easily. Named for the author Lois Ehlert, who wrote a picture book based on a Seneca legend about a mole who refused to yield a molehill to a fox. Naruto Fox. Obviously based on two different stories. One being the popular manga series Naruto that just recently finished its 15-year run. The other the Roald Dahl book The Fantastic Mr. Fox. Bernie, Brandon and Blaine. Very, very loosely based on the Rooster Teeth employees Bernie Burns, Brandon Farmahini, not really, I just used his name because it started with B, and Blaine Gibson, again, not really. The B thing again and I needed a name I could rhyme with a character trait. I don't know if Blaine is in fact particularly vain. Blaine. Based loosely on Saint David, the patron saint of Wales. A deeply religious man, Snicker, whose most notable miracle was to raise the land up to form a small hill. Just to make it absolutely clear, David is Blaine's last name, not his first. Also, his speech pattern is based on the Swole Acceptance subreddit. Go Reddit. Hilarious and kind of inspiring. Chapter 2. The Doppelganger Semblance. You're certain? Professor Osborne, headmaster of the prestigious combat school Beacon Academy and highly respected figure in almost every circle you could ask. So it seems. Reports from first response and footage captured from the AC-130s all say the same thing. The voice from Osborne's scroll answered. A dozen duplicates all identical, all acting independently of each other. It's the Doppelganger, alright. Astounding. Osborne said before taking a sip of his ever-present coffee. The last time that semblance appeared was. Ashina, the Red Death, I remember. The voice finished. Any resemblance? Semblances are semi-hereditary, after all. There was a pause. He's a Fronis, Oz. The voice stated flatly. Well, I suppose I'm just so enlightened I don't see such differences anymore. Oz said chidingly. Don't give me that, Osborne. You know I've been trying to. Osborne's laugh interrupted him. Relax, James. I was just messing with you. General James Ironwood could be heard grumbling on the other end of the scroll call, but he let the jibe slide with a sigh. That does bring up a problem, though. Ironwood admitted. Jacques is making a lot of noise over this. He's making it sound as though the boy conspired with the Grim to weaken the kingdom while at the same time playing the part of magnanimous redeemer by offering to employ the other Fronis as a sort of community service. Oh dear. Osborne sighed. And I assume he wants the boy imprisoned or executed to get rid of any obstacles. James, that semblance is too valuable to lose to the machinations of a greedy fool like Schnee. The SDC does a lot of good for the kingdoms, Oz. Ironwood defended weakly. But you're right. Thing is, there's not much I can do about it. I'd conscript him to the Hunter Corps, but they're still leery of Fronis here as it is, and with this hanging over him. They would never accept a Fronis with a criminal record. Osborne agreed. Do you have a plan? I'm talking to him. Ironwood said, smirk audible in his voice. Very funny. Osborne said with a roll of his eyes. I'm serious, Oz. I've got nothing. I'm asking for your help. Osborne took another lengthy swig of his coffee as plan after plan was crafted and discarded before he settled on the best one. Even it wasn't spectacular, but it was the best he had. I'll be in Atlas in a few hours. Shall I roll out the red carpet? Ironwood joked. How did that work out for you the last time I visited? Osborne asked with amusement. You snuck in through the back and got one of my men demoted. The general answered flatly. Guards aren't supposed to just let people into secure facilities, James. Even if they do say don't worry, I'm supposed to be here. You were supposed to be there. Ironwood fumed. Details, details. Osborne. It's been too long, it's good to see you. Come in, come in. Jacques Schnee greeted warmly with the pleasantness learned from a lifetime of business dealings. On the inside he was on edge. Osborne never made social calls. Not to him, at least. It was no secret that the two clashed due to their differing ideologies. Hannah, bring some coffee, would you? Black, 1 sugar. Osborne entered the luxurious office fully, examining it in detail. Almost nothing had changed since he had been there last. Same glass desk decorated with the Schnee Dust Corporation logo. A white snowflake, same potted ferns in the back corners. It's good to see you too, Jacques. How's the family? Ah, Winter is continuing her little rebellious phase. Unfortunately it seems Weiss wishes to follow in her footsteps. Whitley is making excellent progress with his studies, at least. Schnee said with the fatherly pride he might show at a new product unveiling. It's truly a joy to see one's children come into their own, isn't it? Osborne asked rhetorically, masterfully hiding his distaste as Jacques' secretary gave him his coffee. Thank you. He said to her as he took a sip. And how are you, Osborne? Schnee asked, trying to get past a polite chat to Osborne's real reason for stopping by. I know you like to go beyond the norm for recruiting students, but I imagine you're a little far afield for that. He said, laughing at his own joke. Actually, that is precisely my purpose here. I wish to speak to you about a young man by the name of Naruto. Schnee's face tightened once again much more noticeably, his thick mustache strengthening the pronouncement of his frown. I see. Standards must have dropped sharply at Beacon if you are looking to recruit grim sympathizers, Osborne. Please remember who you are speaking to, Mr. Schnee. Osborne requested, facade of politeness fading quickly. Do you really expect me to swallow that? I've read the reports. That young man helped fight back a fledgling grim incursion at great personal cost. It's what got him caught after all. 2 men died in that incursion, and he was the direct cause, Osborne. Schnee countered, rising from his chair and raising his voice. On the contrary. The ex-huntsman he fought alongside reports the Mollerts had already made it past the 5 walls surrounding Atlas, and in his expert opinion, Osborne stressed, were very close to creating a much more significant incursion point. One that would allow in far more than just Mollerts. Your scaremongering might work on the populace, it might even work on some of the higher-ups here in Atlas, but rest assured, it does not work on me. Schnee gritted his teeth. This was why he disliked Osborne. Schnee was a captain of industry, a vital part of the kingdom of Atlas, and this damnable man would still speak to him as though he were a petulant child. The boy is still a criminal. He stole tens of thousands of lean worth of food from the mouths of Atlas citizens. And again you speak in such doomsaying terms. Osborne responded, openly rolling his eyes. Not from the mouths of Atlas citizens, Mr. Schnee. From the farms of some very well-off farmers. Not a single person went hungry in Atlas because of Naruto's actions. Had the farmers agreed to trade or to employ some of them, this would not have happened. So that lying Franus would have people believe Schnee began. Osborne cut him off. Enough, Mr. Schnee. We both know why you want the boy out of the way. It can remain unsaid if it will mean you drop this pretense. Schnee drummed his fingers on his desk. Once, twice, before slowly returning to his seat. Very well. What is your alternative? And how does it benefit me remained unsaid. Pragmatism. Osborne answered with the slightest of smirks. Pragmatism. Schnee echoed, scoffing. Indeed. Tell me something, Mr. Schnee. How many of your board members have you lost to the White Fang? Are you threatening? Jacques began before once again being cut off. No, no, far from it. Osborne placated. In truth I'm looking out for your family's safety. Let me put this in the White Fang's perspective for you. A Faunus who did whatever it took to take care of his fellow Faunus risks his life and his freedom in order to fight against a grim incursion. In response, the Schnee Dust Company rallies for the boy to be executed for his feeding the hungry. Now let's say your bid is successful. Naruto is executed for his crime, and you magnanimously offer his friends gainful employment at one of your many mining facilities. And of course it isn't hard to believe that the White Fang might once again mistake your generosity for slavery. Jacques, your plan will make the boy a martyr. Now who is doomsaying? Jacques scoffed. Remind me, Jacques. What was their response to your last recruitment drive? Osborne asked pointedly, taking a swig of his coffee. That was a very good point, Schnee had to admit. 2 board members were abducted in the wake of the announcement, the White Fang threatening to kill them if the SDC didn't halt their plans. SDC policy is to not capitulate to terrorists, so they continued doing as they intended, and the White Fang responded in kind. That was a bad day, to put it far too lightly. Osborne was right. Schnee might not surrender to terrorists, but this would incite them far too much. You still haven't suggested your alternative. Exile them. Osborne suggested. Exile them. Schnee echoed, incredulous. What, all of them? Why? Because that is the option I'm giving you. Ospen said, calmly sipping his coffee. You must admit, Jacques, you have boxed yourself into a corner. You have spent so much effort on painting the boy as a villain the public will not settle for light punishments. Imprisonment, execution, even exile will martyr him to varying degrees. In fact, imprisonment or exile might see him into the arms of the White Fang, and then they have a vendetta against you specifically, don't they? I could just exile him alone. You would recruit him, and I would employ the other Franus. Everybody wins. Schnee countered. I would recruit him in this scenario, would I? Ospen asked with raised eyebrows. Are you really quite certain of that? Schnee gave him a flat look. You wouldn't leave someone to die just to spite me, Ospen. No. I assure you I've done far worse in my career. Ospen retorted truthfully. He wouldn't die anyway. The White Fang would scour the globe to find him, I'm certain. A symbol of their oppression like him. And with his power to boot. Absolutely. Besides, if this entire incident has taught me anything, it's that Franus oppression is still alive and well in Atlas, and fighting against it is a worthy cause. How dare you? Those are your options, Mr. Schnee. Either you can move for Naruto and the other Franus to be exiled to Veil or paint a bigger target on your back. I hope you make the correct decision. Standing up, Ospen calmly left the office. The sound of something smashing following him as he shut the door. As he passed the secretary's desk he once again thanked her for the coffee and suggested she send for a janitor to clean the mess in the CEO's office. And perhaps order a replacement desk. It took several days. Several days of meetings, scroll calls and many assurances to both the Veil and Atlas councils from both Ospen and Ironwood that this was the proper course of action. Add in the admittedly reluctant endorsement from Jacques Schnee, and Ospen was able to meet Naruto personally for the first time to tell him the good news. So who are you? Someone else to accuse me of working with Grimm? Don't bother, I'm not in the mood. He was not greeted warmly. Do you know who I am? Ospen asked. Naruto squinted at him. No, that's why I asked, who are you? Ospen conceded the point. He just loved his intro to the specially recruited students too much to forego the formalities. Well, I should introduce myself then. I admit it has been a while. My name is Professor Ospen, the headmaster of Beacon Academy, the premier combat school within the Kingdom of Veil. That's a long name. Naruto quipped. Ospen smiled. Indeed. And you would be Naruto, do you have a last name? Nope. Orphan. Naruto answered as though tired of hearing the question. Well, that won't do. Ospen complained. It really wouldn't. Putting that on his transcripts would mess up the organization of the system. Would they count that as his last name or first name for alphabetizing purposes? Not to mention it severely limited the possibility for word acronym team names. It might be a bit on the nose, but might I suggest Fox? Naruto shrugged. He considered himself to be Naruto the Fox anyway, so it wasn't a big change. That's fine. Excellent. Ospen smiled again. One problem solved. Now Mr. Fox, if you would indulge me, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Naruto sighed wearily. I didn't work with the Grimm. Why do people keep asking me that? I didn't even know they were there. How the hell are you supposed to work with them anyway? He asked, near shouting. Please calm down. I know you didn't work with the Grimm and I know the whole story with the farmers. I just want to ask about your aura abilities and your semblance. Ospen assured him. Now, if I may ask, who unlocked your aura for you? Naruto stared blankly at him. My what now? Ospen's brow furrowed. Your aura. Makes you stronger, tougher, faster, glows a little sometimes. Oh, that. Naruto exclaimed, understanding dawning on his face. Yeah, I dunno. It was always just a thing I could do. No one else could, but I guess I'm just awesome. He finished his explanation, grinning. Quite. Ospen agreed. Were you always able to use your semblance also? At Naruto's blank look he elaborated. Your doppelgangers. The look remained. Duplicates. Still. Clones. Oh. Yeah, I couldn't always do that. When I was a little kid I was having some rough times. Anyways, we were outnumbered and I was like, I wish there was more of me, and then there was. Were. Ospen corrected. Right, were, whatever. Naruto waved it off. So why die I wanna know. Unlocking aura and semblances are things usually done at combat schools. They are among our greatest tools in fighting the creatures of Grimm. Ospen explained. Usually, aura is unlocked by one person unlocking it for another. Sometimes it happens in a time of great need, but such things are rare. To be honest, I have never heard of it happening so young that the person doesn't even remember not having it. Until today, that is. So you're saying I really am just awesome? Sweet. Naruto exclaimed. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Ospen half agreed. I suppose that's enough sating my curiosity. Thank you for that. Now, I suppose I'm overdue for giving you some good news. Are my family okay? Naruto asked urgently. They're fine and will continue to be fine. You have all been sentenced to exile for your crime. What? Naruto yelled, interrupting the professor. How are we gonna be fine? They're kicking us out into the wilderness. I can't keep 'em safe out there. Please, calm down and let me finish. Ozpin requested calmly. But. Let me finish. Ozpin insisted but decided to keep talking to stop him from interrupting again. Faster that way. You are all being exiled. To Vale. It has been arranged that your family will be employed as farmhands within Vale territory. It isn't especially well-paying work, but it will put food on the table. Naruto started but stopped trying to understand what was happening. Like with Schnee? He hazarded. No. Not like Schnee. They will be paid in lean, real money to spend as they like. I don't understand. Naruto struggled to say, eyes welling up. What's the catch? There's gotta be a catch, you know. No catch. Ozpin affirmed. That's Naruto gasped, wiping at his eyes, before his expression hardened, tears running down his face despite his best efforts. You're lying. That's not how it works. There's always a catch. We'd bow and scrape and beg, and they'd offer us help if we do one little thing. And they'd take some of us away with them. Sometimes they came back with food or money, but they always came back bloody and bruised. Naruto sniffed before slamming his fists on the table. So don't you lie to my face and say there's no fucking catch. That ain't how the world works for us. Mr. Fox. Ozpin said sternly. Naruto looked up at him. Naruto. Ozpin said as his expression softened. Would you like to see them? Naruto's eyes widened, tears still running down his whiskered cheeks before his expression hardened. He nodded. Chapter 3. George Jiransho was a man of noble bearing. Delicate facial features marred only by the small scar to the left of his left eye. His clothing was covered from view by the regal and undeniably antiquated armor he wore colored in blue and gold and adorned with lion motifs surrounded by gold filigree. He carried 2 weapons. A segmented spear and a sword that appeared to only be ceremonial. The shape of the guard obstructing a good third of the blade's edge. Like most hunters, George Jiransho stood out in any crowd. There was no crowd, however. All he saw was an old friend lamenting what he saw as another failure. Mighty Broaden, I pray. Spot me in my time of need. As I bench press my burdens of guilt in sets of 5 by 5. I pray. Give me strength to lift them and hold them high. Lane. I pray. Give me strength not to falter under the weight of my failures. Lane. I pray. Though they may not believe. Though they may not trust in your mighty swole, watch over these 2 as they pass into the next life. Wayman. As George moved to place a hand on the larger man's shoulder, he was as was often the case surprised by the larger man's speed and reflexes. His outstretched arm was grabbed, turned, and grappled into a position where it would be easily broken. Their team all had very specific strengths. Andrea was an expert of tactics and strategy, Patrick had been a master of his own aura, George himself could wield any weapon with uncanny ability. And Blaine could beat anything into submission with his bare hands. George. Blaine said as he disinterestedly released the trapped arm. Andrea was surprised to see your authorization being used. We thought you might have. George trailed off, trying to find the right words. We hadn't heard from you since. Since Patrick. Blaine cut in. Yes. George answered solemnly. The fact that the last time they had seen each other had also been at a friend's grave was not lost on either of them. Were they good men? He asked, unable to stop himself. Blaine scoffed at the tactless question that told you exactly where the other man's priorities were. If you weren't a good man then as far as George was concerned you weren't worth mourning. By your estimation. Hardly. Bernie was angry at worst, irritated at best. Brandon was skittish and utterly unable to stand on his own. They were no saints, but they didn't deserve this. No one deserves this. George said in an attempt at being conciliatory. Then why can't I ever stop it? Blaine shouted, rounding on him. First that outpost, then what happened with Patrick. Patrick wasn't your fault. I gave the order. And I followed it. I should have stayed and fought with him. Blaine growled. An army of hunters couldn't have saved him from that. What good would have been done from you dying alongside him? George asked incredulously. Blaine deflated as he turned his back on his old teammate. At least he wouldn't have died alone. At least I could have saved him from that. What good was done by my surviving? He asked in a hollow tone. Nothing. Blaine looked at him again, shock and hurt plain to see in his eyes, but George continued anyway. What? Were you not expecting an honest answer? He saved your life, but what is that worth when you spent the rest of it hiding in a field spouting nonsense? His sacrifice was pointless because you made it so. And with that, George the Sea Slayer turned his back on his lost teammate for the final time, not even bothering to look as Blaine collapsed to the ground as a quiet scream of self-loathing and loss tore from his throat. As George neared the exit from the graveyard and mounted his white Steed S50 motorcycle, a gray-haired man stepped out from the shade of the gates carrying a coffee cup, long empty, but it was habit at this point. "He will be more open to your offer now," George told him, bitterness seeping into his voice. "It may not seem like it now, but it was a good thing you just did. Both for your friend and for this world." The man tried to comfort him. "If it is all the same, Mr. Osborne. I just found one of my few living friends after he had been missing for years. And within minutes of seeing him again I tore his soul to pieces and pissed on it. Please don't try to tell me that was the right thing to do. I doubt I could stomach it." Naruto was still struck by the view out of the airship even as his journey came to an end. No matter how far they went there was always more world beyond the horizon. It made him eager to explore it but at the same time terrified that it was filled with things that wanted to kill him. Oh, and the grim. They were scary too, he supposed. It had been several days since his fateful meeting with Osborne, and the older man had finally made good on his promise for Naruto to meet his family at their new residence workplace. The trip wasn't so much a trip, however, as it was his official exile. They even had a very official gathering where officious officials watched him get officially thrown out of the kingdom by a couple of AC 130s. Of course the impact of this moment was somewhat ruined by an airship immediately picking him up and his giving a jaunty wave as it flew off. Oh well. He was gone, and that was what mattered as far as both sides were concerned. As the airship touched down, Naruto leapt out of it eagerly, unable to wait to see his family again. He needn't have been in such a rush. Many of them had come to greet him. "Naruto. Boss. It's good to see you again, leader." Tears welled up in Naruto's eyes at seeing the beaming smiles on the faces of his most precious people. For so long they had had to struggle to survive. Now they were free. Healthy. Happy. Safe. Everything he had ever wanted for them had been achieved. "I'm so happy to see you all again. How are you holding up, young man?" Osborne asked. It was late at night. They were sat in the living room of the farmhouse where the Fronis now lived and worked. The owners and workers had all turned in early to prepare for the early rise typical of farm work. Naruto was holding tight onto a cup of tea. It was by no means his preference, but it didn't seem like he even knew it was a drink he was holding. His mind was running in circles. "The owners seem nice," Naruto said finally. "Usually I'm a pretty good judge. You see enough fakers you learn to spot the tells, you know. They seem nice. Genuine. This place is nice, too," he continued. Staring blankly at a non-specific spot on the coffee table. "Everybody gets their own space. Lots of room out back for the kids to play in. Kane told me they found a pond a little ways away and they tried skipping stones across it. She says they're gonna ask if it's okay to swim there." He let out a weak laugh. "You know, I made a promise a while back. When they put me in charge I swore to myself I'd do whatever it took to keep them safe. I'd give up anything to see them live happy lives and now," his voice hitched, "now it looks like they can be. And I'm so happy about that. I'm so glad that I can't stand it. But they don't need me anymore. I put everything I had into making their lives better and now they don't need it. What the hell do I do now?" Osborne calmly sipped his coffee. By arranging this escape for his family, the headmaster had bestowed Naruto with a mixed blessing. Every child growing up comes up with an impossible dream they wish to achieve. They see something amazing and say wow. I wish I could do that. Most see those dreams for the fantasies that they are and abandon them as they near adolescence or adulthood. Others, those with implacable willpower and determination, decide impossible isn't a word. They work, they plan, they fight to achieve the unachievable. And naturally, most of those fail too. Osborne was beginning to believe he fell in the second category. Then there are the rare few. The rare unlucky few who through grit, brains, luck or most often all of the above, manage to obtain a miracle. Their dream comes true. And then, after the elation and accolades start to fade away, the same question inevitably reaches all of them. What do I do now? So much time and effort dedicated to one thing, once it's done they realize they have nothing else. Sacrificed it all for the sake of their dream. Naruto was no different in that regard. He had his people, yes. Even to the point where he called them his family. But even so, and as so often happens with community leaders, he had to maintain a certain distance from them. Being overly close to some of them could lead him to putting their needs over the rest. Even the appearance of doing so could sow dissent. Dissent could lead to division. Division to discovery by their oppressors. And in their former home, that could lead to an unfortunate end for all of them. Osborne idly wondered if the young man in front of him knew that instinctively or found out the hard way. In any case, Naruto could stay with them now if he so chose. He could lead a simple life as a farmhand. Maybe see if he could reforge the bonds with his family on equal terms. But the young man had already tossed aside that possibility or he wouldn't be asking that one question. Fear of them rejecting him? Perhaps. Perhaps he still wanted to achieve the impossible, but had no such goal in front of him. Well, if you're taking suggestions, Mr. Fox. I might have one. Osborn finally said. Right. Naruto smirked. Here it is. Took you so long I was starting to think there really wasn't a catch. There really isn't. Osborn reconfirmed. No catch. Your family are safe and if you wish to stay with them and work here, you can do so. I'm sure the owner wouldn't mind an extra pair of hands. But if you were going to do that I dare say you would be doing that. Naruto didn't respond. Just stared, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mr. Fox. Osborn began, leaning forward in his armchair. What do you know of huntsmen? Naruto shrugged, folding his arms as he leaned back in his own seat. They fight grim. He answered simply. True. The headmaster smirked, accepting the succinct answer. Huntsmen and huntresses fight against the grim to protect the four kingdoms and all people within them. They do this using the best tools available. Advanced, specially crafted weaponry and clothing, but most importantly they use the greatest asset humanity have in this endless conflict. Aura. Is that the thing you called the clone thing I do? Naruto asked. Not quite. Aura is not a well-understood concept. It hinges a great deal on the metaphysical elements of the soul, and it was at this point Osborn noticed the Faunus's vacant expression. In simple terms, aura is the use of the power of the soul to affect the body. It can make you stronger, faster, more durable. Right? Naruto nodded. The thing that makes me awesome. Got it. Why yes. Osborn agreed reluctantly. Usually someone has to unlock another's aura for them, and it can be an unpleasant experience. Left unsaid was that it maimed or killed some people. And through training in its use, one can learn to expand the capabilities of their aura. This is what we call semblance. Ah. Naruto exclaimed, pointing at the older man. That was the clone thingy. Indeed. Your semblance has been dubbed doppelganger in the past. An old word for a look-alike or double of a person. As semblances go, it is in fact one of the most versatile on record. I believe you can figure out where I'm going with this. Naruto dropped his arms from his chest and let them rest perpendicular to his body. You want me to be a huntsman? I do. Osborn confirmed, not hiding his intent in the slightest. Your semblance alone could do so much to beat back the grim, could save so many lives. Your talent with aura without any training whatsoever. Osborn stopped as he saw the deepening frown on Naruto's face. He had believed that with his regular self-aggrandizement, the young Faunus would be rather vulnerable to flattery. Not so, evidently so he tried a different tack. I also have an impossible dream, you know. He began, standing and starting to pace. Lacing a bit of honesty into his appeal might help. I have a dream that one day, people of Vale, of all the four kingdoms can live their lives without fear of the grim. I want to see a world where Atlas doesn't need 5 defensive walls to act as a glorified early warning system. A world where Vale can build a city without it immediately being overrun by soulless monsters. Where I don't have to welcome children to my school, watch them grow into fine young men and women, and years later learn they died fighting for some pointless objective that we later lost anyway. That world that is my dream. And as the years march on I can't help but notice how impossible it is. Even so, that's no excuse to stop. I might not see it in my lifetime. But I like to believe that as long as someone keeps that insane dream alive, it will happen one day. Osborn stopped pacing to look at Naruto directly. You kept wondering what the catch was. There still isn't one, but I propose a trade. I help you achieve your impossible dream. Will you help me with mine? Chapter 4. I have to go to school. Naruto asked, horror plain to see in his expression at the very idea. Indeed. Osborn answered. The two were walking through the streets of Vale, Naruto following the headmaster obediently, mostly owing to having no idea what to do in an entirely new locale. Old habits kicked in for the Fox Faunus trained out of necessity. Constantly watching his surroundings for the figurative and once actual knife in the dark. Observing the people they passed to gauge their motives. Some didn't care, some tried very hard to look like they didn't care, the rest either frightened or glaring. Overall, way better than Atlas in his opinion. While I have allowed students into Beacon a year or two early on occasion, Osborn continued, I believe that would be unwise in your case. Your skills with your aura and semblance are better than some new entrants into my school, but the rest of your skills, the pause seemed to drag on, are even better. Naruto finished, nodding with an expression of certainty on his face. Not so much. Osborn denied, a rueful smile on his face. Besides, even beyond the realm of combat, there is far more to being a huntsman. Huntsmen and huntresses, as much as they are warriors and protectors, they must also be symbols of security for the people. A huntsman must seem in control of everything around them at all times. For example, being aware of your surroundings is good. Doing so obviously makes you look paranoid and worried. Which makes the people paranoid and worried. I don't need to tell you why that would be bad. Naruto grimaced and tried to stop looking around. He lasted a few seconds before twisting around to see something in his periphery. Seeing that it would be more difficult than he thought, he settled for trying to be less obvious. Osmond smiled slightly at the attempt. Learning such control over oneself was more something learned at Beacon than Signal, but it served well as an example of how much Naruto still had to learn. I've made arrangements so that you can skip much of the standard curriculum, but at the very least you will be designing your own weapon, learning to properly maintain it, and learning to wield it. You will also be designing your combat outfit. Don't know much about weapons. Naruto admitted. Osmond nodded. Hence why you will be spending a year at Signal. Having your own is a requirement to join Beacon. Naruto frowned, still not liking the idea, but coming around to the necessity. Fine. So is that where we're going now? Not quite. Osmond admitted. Unfortunately the new term doesn't start for another month. Not to worry, though. I've made arrangements for you to stay at an apartment in the city in the meantime. Quiet, as though in the distance, an ominous voice carried over to the two. Amazing Gaians, how sweet the lifts. With appropriate supervision, of course. Agree a bro like me. Naruto looked at the headmaster oddly. So I'm gonna stay with some random stranger for a month. I once was weak, but knew I'm swole. Well, Osmond started as they approached the front door of an apartment complex, not really a random stranger. Was skinny buat now. Osmond raised his hand to press the buzzer for Naruto's future apartment, but got the feeling it was unnecessary. Where he got that idea. Huge. One may never know. Standing before them, having thrown open the door, near ripping it off its hinges, was Blaine David. Former huntsman and bass singer, apparently. Fox boy. Blaine exclaimed on seeing Naruto again. It's been too long. Naruto shot Osmond a look that questioned the man's sanity before looking back to Blaine. Then shot Osmond the same look again with emphasis, ears twitching in irritation before looking up at the disturbingly muscular man. It really hasn't. Don't be like that, Fox boy. Now come, I welcome you to the mighty iron temple I call my abode. For all those seeking the greatness of Swole, mighty broad and shall accept them with open, muscular, rippling arms. Blaine reassured, heading inside expecting Naruto to follow him. He didn't. Instead, he turned to look at Osmond again, very confused. So is he brought an ore? Osmond started but thought better of it. We'll see you in a year. Good luck Mr. Fox. He said before walking towards the nearest metro. Naruto watched him leave before sagging in defeat and trudging into the small house. Alright, class. We have a new student joining us this year. The teacher droned uninterested. Please introduce yourself. She told Naruto. Naruto stood awkwardly at the front of the class, scratching the back of his head. Hi. I'm Naruto Fox. He could see the dirty looks he was getting from a couple of people. That was the worst he got, but none of the looks were particularly friendly. Then some kid with a mohawk basically set the tone for the year. What's with the scratching? You got fleas or something? Most of the class erupted in laughter. Naruto sighed. This was going to be a long year. The hunter track at Signal had the students spending a lot of time in one particular room. The combat training hall. A small arena for sparring, a firing range, some training dummies for melee practice, everything students would need to hone their skills with their own weapons and abilities. So you're the kid Oz has his eye on, huh? The laid-back combat teacher asked Naruto rhetorically. It wasn't a class that was occurring. Naruto was visiting the combat instructor after hours as part of his fast-track huntsman program. Naruto mentally decided the teacher reminded him of Old Gray, one of the older Fronis in his little community that spent most of his time drunk off his ass. It might have been the disheveled appearance and constant slur that drew the comparison. I guess. He answered. Well, if there's one thing about him I can't deny, it's that he has an eye for talent. Crow Branwyn smirked at his subtle ego trip. So. You can fight a little. You have aura and your semblance. What you don't have is your gear. Combat clothing and a weapon. Yeah, I figured that out. Naruto agreed. Everyone else on the hunter track had a special outfit they would wear in combat class. The weapons were the real problem. Without one Naruto had real trouble. His opponents just had more options than he did. He would win occasionally, but only by abusing the hell out of his semblance. Unfortunately people figured out the tricks to it quickly and he stopped winning after that. Yeah. You're at a real disadvantage until we get this solved, so we're rushing things a bit. Any thoughts on your weapon? Naruto shrugged helplessly. I dunno. I mean I've never really trained with any weapons. Yeah. Crow shrugged. That's a problem. We could probably set you up with something for you to train with until we get you your own, but maybe we should stick with something a little closer to the skills you already have. Like what? Crow scratched at his stubble as he thought. Well, you saw what Yang uses, right? Gauntlets. Ugh, don't remind me. The Fox Fronis grumbled. She was basically the one to show how to bypass his semblance. One area attack and all his clones went poof. Heh, yeah. She kicked your ass. The teacher laughed. Noticing the boy scowling at him, he shrugged. What? It was hilarious. Heh, poof. Come on, teach. Naruto whined. Alright, sorry. Crow raised his hands in defense before wiping a tear of laughter from his eye. Ha, but you get my point, right? Something small that won't get in the way of how you usually fight. HN. Naruto grunted before taking a moment to think. What the teacher was saying made sense. It would take too long if he had to learn a whole new fighting style to accompany his new weapon. Should he get something like gauntlets like that blonde girl? Look, it's the Fleabag. Careful, I bet he's rabid. Release the hounds. Hey teach. What about claws? If they think he's an animal, fine. He was going on it. Crow considered. Not a bad idea. I mean, you're probably doing it just to thumb your nose at the other kids giving you crap about being a faunus, but… Oh, crap, is he a psychic? Naruto thought in panic. It might actually work pretty well. It'll still mean adjusting your style a little, but nowhere near as much as most anything else would. Alright, so hands. Or feet. Could it be both? Naruto asked. Kinda. Crow answered vaguely, wobbling his hand in a so-so gesture. I mean, the problem with blades on your feet is them getting stuck. Leaves you unbalanced until you get both of them under you again. I still wanna try. Naruto said firmly. Crow shrugged. No skin off my nose. How about a ranged option? For this I'd say just the hands for now. Guns on your legs takes a lot of practice. Naruto shrugged. Never really used guns before. What do you think? Well, Crow started, standing up and walking over to a nearby weapon rack. The way I see it, you have two options. Taking an automatic weapon off the rack, he heads to the firing range. Checking and loading it, he continued. You could go with an automatic small caliber like this. He demonstrated by unloading a full clip into the target, dozens of punctures, peppering the middle two rings of the target. Rapid fire, small hits. Since your semblance will duplicate them, you could make a literal wall of bullets. And the drawbacks? Naruto asked. Crow bit the inside of his cheek. Small hits. For the bigger, badder Grim, one bullet is the same as 1,000. Neither will do anything. There are Grim that's strong. Naruto exclaimed. And stronger. Crow nodded grimly. Which is why he began as he lifted a grenade launcher. This is your other option. Firing a grenade down the range, there was a moderate explosion that took out 3 targets in their entirety. Big hits. And again, with your semblance, it could be a dozen big hits at once. He finished, smirking. Crow admitted to himself that he had a soft spot for a big kaboom. Well, you see, Naruto hesitated. He wasn't sure of his big idea, but it wouldn't happen if he didn't talk about it. I kind of have an idea for that anyway, but… But what? Crow pressed. Well, Naruto said, shuffling as he pulled out a sketch from his coat pocket. I kinda had an idea for my combat gear. Crow put the grenade launcher back on the rack and snatched the sketch from the fox furnace's hand. Actually not bad. It's eye-catching. No idea what those designs are, but this could war. His train of thought was knocked off the tracks when he read the notes on the page. Orange dust. He deadpanned. Well, it is my favorite color. Heh. Naruto laughed awkwardly. Orange? In your clothes. Yeah. Crow Brandwin swallowed thickly. The proverbial devil and angel sitting on his shoulders. It's insane. But ingenious. But insane. We've seen crazier. And what are those people now? Some of the strongest hunters on Remnant. They are dead. Teach. Naruto hazarded. The combat teacher had been quiet for a while and kept twitching. The fox furnace was honestly getting a little worried. Snapping out of his daze, Crow looked at Naruto with seeing eyes again. He took a deep breath and returned to his desk, pulling out a flask and taking a long pull from it. Okay. Alright, kid. Here's the deal. You are not ready for this kind of hardware. We'll see about maybe doing something like what you've put here in the future, but for now. No. Not a chance. We'll get you some grenades, and you can do the same damn thing with those without the chance of accidentally atomizing yourself, got it? The fox nodded, wide-eyed, having never seen the combat teacher so serious. The teacher took another deep breath. Okay. So 4 claws and the arms with machine guns mounted on them. Got it. I'll set it up, just go away. Naruto nodded and practically ran from the room. Crow sighed as he watched the boy leave. I swear I'm gonna drink myself under the table. Hey, Uncle Crow, I'm here for training. Damn it. Several weeks later. Awesome. Naruto breathed as he looked over his new implements. Yeah, thought you might like him. Crow smirked. This was probably the best part of his job, seeing the kids gush over their new toys. Well, watching them beat the crap out of each other might be a little more fun. But this was a close second. These are so much cooler than I thought they'd be. I mean I thought they'd just be claws, but they're retractable, and the guns are so freaking tiny, and this is so awesome. Yeah, I know right. Now remember, when using the guns. Awesome. Damn it kid, shut your trap, let me explain how they work. Chapter 5. Alright, kid. You ready to try these things out? Crow asked his students still absorbed in studying his new equipment. Naruto held one of the 4 sets of claws by the wrist. Well, Crow suggested claws, what he actually came back with was something more akin to gauntlets, heavily segmented to allow for freedom of movement and with separated fingers. Running along the back of each finger was a set of ridges that housed the claws themselves while retracted. Bending one of the fingers manually, he found even retracted the digits could bend freely, proving the claws were segmented as well. The body of it was painted in black with orange stripes running vaguely along where the bones of his hand would be and by extension, where the claws were sheathed. Close to the center of the hand was a gun barrel attached to a small block that went the rest of the way up past wrist. Cautiously putting the gauntlet on his right hand, Naruto found the thing to be suspiciously comfortable. It took a second to realize the inside wasn't solid, instead almost like a padded glove. Testing the range of movement, he found it was okay. It was still restricting, but he guessed only as much as was absolutely necessary for it to function as intended. He found himself confused when he tried to find a way to release the claws. Leaning casually on his desk, Crow took pity on him. The switch near the middle finger. Naruto felt around the base of his middle finger and found a small catch camouflaged in the black paint. Releasing it, nothing happened. Naruto again looked confused at his teacher. Crow was grinning madly. He knew the next part would be his favorite. Do this. He said, his fingers and thumb bent about halfway at every knuckle before suddenly straightening them with a snap movement. Naruto watched and mimicked the movement. With a sharp snick sound, the claws released, each as long again as his finger. Naruto took in a deep breath of air. Awesome, right? Crow asked, grinning still. Awesome. Naruto shouted in absolute glee. Yeah, our guys don't half-ass their designs, I can tell you that. Crow bragged. Now those are bladed on both sides so I don't need to tell you, no handshakes when you're all rip and tear, got it? Just flip the switch again to retract them. Naruto dutifully followed the implied order and with another snick, the blades were sheathed. Naruto frowned. Why not just have the claws come out with the switch? They did originally. Crow admitted. Then the engineers figured out it was a pain in the ass to flip a switch with huge knives on your fingers. He paused. Also, it makes you look really cool doing the finger thing. He smirked. So what about the gun? Naruto asked. Alright, before we get to that, let me go over the basic rules of guns, okay? Crow said, unusually serious. Naruto nodded. Okay, Rule 1. A gun is always loaded. Especially when it isn't. Naruto tried to look at him with one raised eyebrow, instead looking like he had something in his eye. That doesn't make sense. Crow sighed. It means just because you know for a fact you unloaded the magazine yourself doesn't mean someone else hasn't been screwing around with it since. Basically, no matter how sure you are of how not dangerous your weapon currently is, never ignore the rest of these rules. The number of people who got hurt because some moron thought his weapon wasn't dangerous is not a small number. Got it? Naruto nodded hurriedly. Crow nodded slowly. Rule 2. Never point it at something you don't want to destroy. More difficult for you, what with them being on your arm but still important. Machines aren't perfect and they can misfire at the worst possible times if you let them. Rule 3. Don't put your finger on the trigger until you're aiming at your target. One finger twitch is all that's between you and shooting something you don't want to shoot. And Rule 4. Be sure of your target and what's past your target. Say you and some other huntsman are surrounding a grim. You shoot the grim, but your buddy was on the other side of it. Congratulations, you just shot both the grim and your buddy. Bullets can penetrate. They go through things. So it's possible, even likely that you'll shoot your target and what's behind it. Even more for you because those are automatic weapons and they tend to spray. You got all that? Say it back to me. It's always loaded, don't point it at things I don't want to kill, don't touch the trigger unless I'm already aiming at the target and know my target and what's past my target. Naruto recited, surprising himself with how much he could remember. Good. Crow nodded satisfied. Now, you're a dumb kid. That's fine. You'll screw those up from time to time. But just know I'm gonna beat your ass every time you do. Everyone who comes in this room has unlocked their aura, so people getting accidentally shot isn't quite as big a deal in here as it is anywhere else. But it is a problem anywhere else, so we make damn sure those rules get tattooed onto your brain before we let you take your weapons out of here. Yes, sir. Naruto nodded sharply. Alright. Now, put on your other gauntlet and let's do some target practice. Naruto nodded again and put on his other gauntlet. It matched the one on his right hand exactly. He also tested out the movement and the claws for reasons of diligence, and absolutely not because it was awesome and he wanted to do it with both hands. Suited up as much as he needed to be for this exercise, he headed over to stand by his teacher at the firing range. "Okay. Hands out, palm down," Crow ordered. Naruto dutifully raised his hands towards his teacher and immediately got a fist brought down on his head for it. "Idiot. What did I just tell you?" Crow shouted. Naruto ran the last few minutes through his head and realized even upside down, the barrel of both his weapons were pointed at his teacher. "Sorry teach." Crow slapped him across the side of his head for it anyway. "Don't do it again," he admonished before pointing the boy's hands to either side of him. Taking the right hand, he pointed at the box on the back of the furnace's wrist. "See this?" Getting a nod, "This is where the guts of your weapon are kept." Releasing a series of latches, he removed the box itself, which turned out to be more of a housing case. Inside were two very obvious slots and some machinery Naruto had no idea about. "Two slots here. What are they for?" "Well, that one's probably for the bullets," he figured, based on it being right up against the other gun bits. "Correct." Crow agreed, slotting the magazine into place with a click. "And the other?" Naruto shrugged. "I don't know." Crow took a small tube filled with a yellow substance and placed it in the slot. "Claws out," he ordered. Naruto flipped the safety switch and released his claws and was surprised to see yellow lines running along them and that they were sparking with electricity. "Dust," Naruto breathed. "Nice, right?" Crow smirked. "Pretty much all weapons designed nowadays have some compatibility with dust. Yours uses powdered dust to enhance the claws. It also requires dust rounds for your long-range option. Ordinary rounds would be too small to have any power behind them at all. Basically your stuff is gonna be kind of expensive, so go easy. Oz is bankrolling you for now, but once you start taking missions at Beacon, it'll be up to you to manage your own supplies." The teacher removed the dust cartridge and put the housing back on before telling his student to put his claws back in. "You ready for some target practice?" Crow asked, smirking. Getting an eager nod, he took his student by the shoulders and pointed him down range. "Now it's going to be difficult to aim because you can't sight it properly, but..." Weeks later. "Left, inward swipe. Right, inward swipe. No. You're leaning in too much, don't claw your own face off." Months later. "Now remember your stepping method. Always heel toe. They don't hinge in the same direction as the fingers, so if you step toe down, you'll stab your feet in the floor." Shink. "Damn it, stop stabbing my floor, kid." 1 week before graduation. Naruto was tired of sparring practice. He used to enjoy it. Even when he was getting blasted across the room by the boxing bimbo, he had fun with it. He enjoyed fighting, mostly because he was actually kind of good at it, that is, when he was allowed to be. Unfortunately, there were a couple of things getting in his way during sparring practice. The first was, frankly, everyone was at least a couple steps ahead of him in either skill or gear or both. The second, ever since he got his weapons, the combat instructor had handicapped him. His regular hand-to-hand style was basically that of a brawler. He knew how to read his opponent and capitalize on openings with fists, feet and the occasional full-body tackle. But now that he had a weapon, he was expected to fight like he was using it, even though he wasn't. He didn't really get why. All Crow would tell him was that he should shut up and trust that he knew what he was doing. For the Fox Furnace, it was tough to swallow. His performance in sparring plummeted. People either thought he was a terrible fighter or he was mocking them. Both views led to people looking down on him even more than they already did. "Hawks. Thrush. You're up next. Get your gear," Crow said as he watched the current bout. Russell Thrush jogged towards the locker room, smirking at Naruto as he passed. The Fox Furnace just let out a sigh of frustration. "Hawks, you hear me or not? Get your gear," Crow repeated. Naruto's head snapped up to look at his teacher in shock. In response, Crow just shot him a sidelong glance before winking at him. Naruto grinned, some viciousness sneaking into his expression that he didn't even try to hide, before darting into the locker room. A few minutes later, the fight ended. Once again, Yang Xiaolong won against her opponent. Funnily enough, the entire class somewhat hated the bubbly blonde, at least in terms of fighting. She was basically impossible for any of them to beat. A talented fighter taught by a master, with a semblance that meant even if you did start to win, she could just rage nope you into a wall. Fun to hang around with, but fighting her was basically taking punishment. Crow even used it as one a few times. She hadn't seemed to mind much. The door to the locker room opened, and the sound of Russell's laughter could be heard as he came out in his combat clothes. When asked why he was laughing, he just laughed harder, sounding a little forced. Then his opponent came out and they were even more confused. Stepping out of the locker room, Naruto cut an unexpectedly impressive figure. His combat outfit shared some similarity to most of his casual clothes. A tailcoat colored burnt orange with 2 concentric circles in black on each shoulder. A black shirt with comma-like symbols in orange patterned around the neck. Matching black trousers and belt with a circular orange belt buckle. On his hands and feet were gauntlets and boots, all oddly ridged and with the same orange and black color scheme. A few of the class looked back at Russell, as if to ask why he was laughing. Noticing their looks, his giggles died down. "Ah, you didn't notice. He'll show you in a second." Naruto followed the green-haired annoyance onto the sparring platform and stood opposite him around 30 feet away. "Okay, kids. Same as always, weapons out, go on my signal." Crow ordered, sounding bored. It was just another spar, but at least this one might be kind of satisfying. On that order, Thrush unsheathed his twin daggers, flipping them over his wrists and catching them in a ready position. Naruto opposite him flipped the safeties off his gauntlets before clicking his heels together and flexing his fingers out, extending all 4 sets of claws. A couple of the class laughed, finally getting the joke. "I guess we really did get to ya, huh?" Russell taunted. "Much as you tried to pretend we didn't." "Yeah. You did." The fox agreed. "Consider me gotten. Guess that makes it my turn, right?" "Oh." Russell didn't hesitate in the slightest, dashing forward to take the initiative. Jumping into a front flip, he brought each of his daggers down in turn, both blocked by both sets of finger claws. Using the impact to push himself back a bit, the mohawked boy got his feet under him before starting another series of rapid strikes. He had trained extensively in an acrobatic style, incorporating spins and flips into his movements as a matter of course. Claws not being an ideal implement for defense, Naruto decided not to try and weather the blows, spinning and sweeping one of his legs through both of Russell's, knocking his opponent off his feet briefly. Sadly, the boy was used to finding his feet and was already ready for the next clash. The momentum was on Naruto's side and he capitalized on it. Taking a page out of Russell's book, he rushed in, but instead of rapid strikes went all out on a jump kick. Russell tried to block with a dagger, but it wasn't enough. The toe of Naruto's boot struck the dagger, but that just meant the claws pushed past it, impacting him in the chest. As the boy was pushed back, the weapon caught between the fox's claws was ripped out of his hand. Russell rolled backwards to get distance before he noticed one of his hands was empty. Looking at Naruto, he saw the fauna smirking at him, holding the dagger awkwardly between his fingers before flick throwing it at Crow, who caught it easily. Russell knew he could go get it, but it would mean forfeiting. "You're not using your semblance," Russell noted. The blonde Franus was known to abuse the hell out of it before to keep up. "Nope." Naruto confirmed. "Want to see if I can stack up without it? Problem?" "Alright. Just weapons then." Russell nodded. "If that makes you feel better about where this is going, sure." Naruto smiled menacingly. "But just so we're clear," he said as he started moving again. "It's still going to go there." The fox approached the human and began a series of slashes, aiming to overwhelm much as the opponent had at the start of the fight. A left slash, a right, another low sweep, a rising slash, all either cautiously blocked or nimbly dodged, while the human tried to back off, waiting for his opening. It never came. But the right slash, Naruto moved into one of his most reliable combinations by starting to spin. 1 slash. 2. 3. The dagger flew out of his hand. 4. A kicking slash. 5. 6. Another kick. And so it kept going. And going. As the beating continued, a blonde with impressive hair sidled up to the teacher asking him quietly, "Shouldn't you stop this? He's already lost his weapons." Crow shrugged. "Happens in a fight sometimes. Doesn't mean you've lost. Besides, Thrush kind of has this coming. It'll be good for him. Probably." But Yang started. "You didn't have these concerns when it was the fox on the receiving end, Yang." His niece's jaw snapped shut with an audible click. "Haha, don't wear that face, firecracker. It happens. And besides, Thrush could probably turn this around if he used his semblance. That he isn't is his choice. And if he loses because of it, that'll be another lesson for him." Watching the display of the combatant's aura, he waited for Thrush's meter to get low enough to stop the fight, but high enough that he would have time to stop Fox. "Alright, that's enough." True to his prediction, Naruto got in a couple more strikes mostly out of momentum before planting his feet firmly, his upper body wobbling unsteadily. Winner. Naruto Fox. Chapter 6. Orange Trailer. The Fauna Civil Rights Protest. They weren't a particularly common occurrence in Atlas. It was basically asking to be taken in for civil disobedience and sentenced to community service in plain terms, being sent to one of the Schnee dust factories or mines and never being seen or heard from again. But the SDC had nowhere near as much power over Vale as it did over Atlas. And however many humans would sneer at Franus as they passed them in the street, there was a certain measure of tolerance for Franus antics. They would shout chants, wave signs and ruffle a few feathers and then go back to doing what they usually did. And not a difference was made. But it was that indifference that led to one Naruto Fox attending the festivities. Not taking part, mind you. His survival instincts from Atlas continued to tell him not let himself be noticed at an event like this. But he was satisfied to watch from his bench seat as the protest went on. It was actually a rather nice day. The whole thing was being held at a park across from the government offices. It was a pleasant way to spend a day, surrounded by people who knew. Better than Blaine could. Better than Osborne could. Hey, maybe one day his instincts would shut up and he could join in. Excuse me. Did you need a sign? A sweet cheerful voice asked. The fox Francis looked up to see one of the most adorable girls he had ever seen. She looked to be about his age, maybe a little younger. Wood-brown hair cut in a bob topped with little bare ears, big green eyes, and tiny fangs peeking through her innocent smile. Dressed in a black t-shirt, dark gray vest and black jeans, she held out a sign for him to take. It read "We are not animals." He started holding up his hands to wave away her offer and politely decline, but the words just wouldn't come out. Unfortunately, waving around his hands without saying anything just drew her attention to them. And their unusual accoutrements. Oh, wow. Are you a huntsman? She asked with very convincing enthusiasm. Not really. I mean I'm still in training, he stammered awkwardly. She didn't seem to be listening. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing that a huntsman came to our protest. It would be so great if you could say something. Please. She begged, dropping her signs to clasp her hands together, biting her bottom lip. Oh, no, it's that look. Naruto mentally screamed. I hate that look. And she's way better at it than Kane ever was. He tried to look away. Tried to steel himself to say no and see that look of hope turn to disappointment. Okay. What? No. Bad mouth. You said a stupid thing. And then the bear girl's face lit up and she squealed with joy and all was forgiven. Yay. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. She exclaimed as she pulled him up from his seat and started leading him into the crowd. Now I'm just gonna do an introduction for you and then you can say what you want to say. What's your name? She asked sheepishly as she continued dragging him to a little podium the protest had set up. Naruto Fox. Naruto said, it coming out as a question. I'm Topaz Smoke. Nice to meet you. She chirped with a smile and let go of his hand as she got up on the podium. She whispered in the ear of the man leading the chants, an older blonde boy with horse ears. He nodded and handed her the microphone. Naruto's stomach started tying itself in knots. My fellow Francis, she spoke into the microphone, her voice amplified by the speakers at the sides of the podium. The whole crowd started to quiet down. We have a special guest today who would like to say a few words. It's my pleasure to introduce to you all, the huntsman. In training, she added Sato voice away from the microphone. Naruto Fox. Naruto let loose a deep breath. So she did hear me say I'm in training. And yet she dragged me up here anyway. That girl is dangerous. As Naruto stepped onto the podium, he noticed there was confusion in the crowd that a huntsman that they hadn't heard of before, a Francis huntsman at that, was about to speak. Still, they were receptive and offered polite applause and a few cheers. Naruto was no stranger to speeches. He'd made a few to his family in the past. The microphone was new. The complete lack of preparation was also new. But he decided to give it his best and racked his brain for something to say. My fellow Francis, he started, imitating Topaz as he searched for the right words. This rally isn't about fear or hatred. Let's go with hope instead. Only half a century ago, the humans thought of us as pests. Nowadays you might hear some humans openly call us vermin, but that's not what I mean. I mean they literally saw us on the same level as the rats infesting their sewer or the insects crawling around in their walls. We didn't belong in their ivory castles and they did their best to step on us when they could and force us out when they couldn't. He surveyed the crowd, he couldn't place exact reactions due to how fast he did it and how much focus he was using for his impromptu speech, but nobody appeared to be heavily adverse to his words so far. So far so good as far as he was concerned. They came up with a way to keep us out. They came up with a place where they could lock us away like the beasts they decided we were. He paused a beat, shifting his look to something just a noticeable bit more stern. We said no. The Francis people declared in one voice that we would not be caged. That we would not be controlled. This freedom that we experience today is a freedom that our people fought, bled and died for. We have earned the right to stand right here, not 200 yards from the seat of the Vale government, and proudly say that we are also the people of Vale, and we will be acknowledged. A cheer rose up from the crowd as if to prove him right. Gaining confidence with the crowd's approval, the Fox Francis continued. The White Fang would tell you that protests like this don't matter. That the only reason we've made so much progress is because we bled it from the humans. They would say the only way to get them to treat us as true equals is to keep bleeding them until they beg us to stop. He slammed a fist down on the podium, caught up in his own speech's energy. I don't believe that. I refuse to believe that. The humans saw us as beasts. The methods of the White Fang only prove them right. We need to be more than what they expect from us. Be smart. Be capable. Be determined. Be everything the humans are and then some. With every success, prove that every time they called us vermin, they called themselves idiots. The only idiot here is you, boy. The voice came as though from a megaphone. Loud and distorted. Naruto looked around, searching for the source. Having been so focused on his speech, he hadn't noticed the small aircraft that had appeared above the park. An emblem was painted on the side, a wolf's head with 3 claw marks through it. The white fang. Naruto breathed. It came out louder than expected. Noticing he was still holding the microphone, he made the most obvious judgment call of his life. Everyone, evacuate the area, now. Some ran, but most were petrified with fear. Not having that, Naruto smacked the microphone on the podium, holding back so he didn't destroy it. The loud bang followed by shrill feedback from the speakers snapped the crowd out of it. Run, you idiots. Finally wising up to the increasingly dangerous situation, they scattered in all directions to get away. Not willing to let the humans in the crowd off so easily, 2 men in grim masks appeared from inside the Bullhead-class aircraft and opened fire on any targets without animal features. Not willing to let that go, the Fox Frontis clicked off the safety on his gauntlets but kept the claws sheathed. Instead, pointing one hand at the airship and putting the other on the top of his wrist, gripping the trigger there and pulling, unloading lightning dust rounds into the ship. It wasn't enough to damage the Bullhead, but it got the white fang grunts to take cover. You will not interfere with our justice, traitor. The same voice from before spoke before a large man jumped out of the Bullhead. He wore similar to the standard white fang uniform of black trousers and gloves, but his upper body was covered by a white sleeveless top with high collar and low neckline. His face was covered by a grim mask like the others, but with a more elaborate design, somewhat resembling the white half of a king Tajitu. Oh. He also had a chainsaw. That was probably more important than his shirt, wasn't it? The heavily muscled man landed hard in a crouch on the concrete slabs of the park paths, but seemed no worse for wear from it. Standing to his full height, he casually revved his chainsaw. Then the grunt started firing on the fleeing civilians again. Not having that. Naruto muttered as he made a cross sign with his fingers. He didn't wait for the smoke to clear before giving his order, keep those clowns covered. An identical copy of the fox dashed out of the cloud, already opening fire on the Bullhead as his creator had ordered. I know of you, Fox. The muscle-bound man started, his accent that of the Mistral wilderness. We wanted to recruit you after what happened in Atlas. Why would you turn your back on your people for them? He asked with venom. Naruto started. Never mind. I don't care. The White Fang lieutenant said. All that matters now is that you are a traitor. He roared as he dashed forward swinging his chainsaw in a wide arc. Naruto reacted quickly, unsheathing his claws in a split second but not bothering to try blocking a chainsaw with them. Strong they might be, but indestructible they were not. And a high-power chainsaw could easily be enough to break them. Instead he opted for backing as quickly as he could to stay out of range of the large man's swings. Noticing a chance as the lieutenant went for an overhead swing, Naruto rolled forwards behind his enemy and swung his hand claws at the larger man's legs. The first landed, the second was blocked by a back kick. The lieutenant had been holding his swing, knowing he was leaving himself open and wondering what the fox would do. Disappointed, but curiosity satisfied, he spun around and brought the chainsaw down on the Fox Frontis. Desperate, Naruto rolled sideways awkwardly, his foot claws getting in the way, but allowing him to barely dodge the teeth of the weapon. Behind the lieutenant, a figure emerged from behind the podium and opened fire. Dust rounds started raining down on the man's unprotected back, causing him to stumble and whirl around with a snarl. He growled audibly on seeing who it was, raising his chainsaw to block the continuing shots. Ah, did you really think I made just one? Naruto smirked. The smirk fell from his face however, when the White Fang member sank into the ground. A moment later he came up again right underneath the clone behind the podium, bisecting him with the chainsaw as he came up. Another 3 streams of dust rounds came at him immediately afterwards. Did you really think I made just TW? Shut it, traitor. The lieutenant roared as he took cover behind the podium. Unknown to the Fox Frontis, he sank into the ground again, coming up elsewhere. Looking around, he took stock of the situation. All of the civilians were gone and he could hear sirens coming. The mission was a bust and it wasn't worth capture to kill the traitor. Decision made, he sank into the earth again. Naruto was in the middle of creating more clones when he saw the chainsaw-wielding terrorist shoot out of the ground like a rocket directly under the Bullhead, grabbing onto the cabin edge as he reached his apex. Climbing inside he ordered the pilot to return to base. Naruto watched it leave with a frown before surveying the area. There were people hurt, mostly human. He sighed, but resigned himself to giving first aid until the authorities arrived. They wouldn't thank him for it, but that didn't matter. It was the right thing to do. Saint, stay away from me. The injured man shouted as Naruto approached. In response, the blonde Frontis shrugged. Okay. Have fun bleeding out. He said as he moved on to the next person. And again. If they wanted to be idiots, he was content to let them. Chapter 7. Do you have everything packed? Yes, Blaine. Including your weights. They'll have weights at the school, Blaine. A man should have his own weights. Heavy burdens now makes carrying future burdens all the easier. Brocrates. I'm pretty sure that wasn't his name. And also that he didn't say anything like that. Fox boy. Naruto felt a weighty, powerful hand drop onto his shoulder and squeeze lightly. You should take your own weights. Naruto opened his mouth to respond and froze as the pressure on his shoulder started to increase. Slowly turning his head to look at Blaine, he saw the former huntsman with a solemn look on his face, nodding slowly, as though his head was bobbing to an unheard rhythm. Sighing defeatedly, Naruto's head sank. I'll take my weights. He agreed, sullen. Blaine slapped him on the back hard enough to stagger him. Good man. Now, let us thank Broden for conferring this new wisdom unto you. Mighty Broden, who is in the Iron Temple, hallowed be thy Blaine chanted, moving through bodybuilding poses as he went. I'm gonna go pack again. Naruto called as he returned to his room for what would hopefully be the last time. Blaine might have shared a home him while not at school, but he really was too much to handle sometimes. Don't forget your spares. Blaine called after him in the most muscular pose. Right. Naruto answered. At least he's not doing it in a speedo this time. The airship for Beacon students was grander than Naruto was expecting. On the outside it had appeared to be very similar to his transportation from Atlas to Vale, if much larger. That part made sense what with a greater number of passengers. Something like 200 students attended Beacon at one time, he found out during one of his few periods of independent research. No, it was the inside that surprised him. Comfortably appointed, fancy-looking arch windows lining both sides and soft bench seating running underneath on both sides. View screens appeared at intervals along the walls, showing a live broadcast of the Vale News Network. Naruto grimaced as another Beacon student looked at him, then back to the news feed. The White Fang crashing a Fronis rights rally was a big news story. A lone Fronis fighting them off was apparently a bigger one. He'd been getting attention any time he left the house for the past few days. Some old lady had come up to him out of the blue, said you're one of the good ones. Gave him a nod and walked off. What the hell was he supposed to do with that? It sounded like it was meant as a compliment, but something about it offended him and he wasn't sure what it was. Mentally shrugging it off, Naruto looked around at the other students. A lot of them were returning after the summer break, but some were clearly new. The blonde boy in old-fashioned armor and casual clothes looked sick with nerves. The short girl in black and red looking uncomfortable with Yang. He shuddered and moved on. Then there was his jaw hung open on seeing the welcome yet unwelcome familiar face making her way towards him. Oh, there is no way. Why? Why are you here? Well, that's a pretty silly question. The chirpy bear Fronis responded with a warm toothy smile. Naruto cocked his head to one side. You know, you're right. That was a dumb question since the answer's obvious. But that just raises further questions, you know. Like, if you're a student at Beacon, why the hell did you bail at the rally? She tilted her head, a thoughtful expression on her face. Because I don't want the White Fang to kill me. She answered, before smiling again. You seemed up for it though, so I figured I should let you do your thing. That's nice of you. Naruto deadpanned. Thanks. She chirped. I was being sarcastic, you know. Naruto growled. Oh, well then you're a jerk. The bear girl corrected, still wearing a carefree smile. Naruto gave her a queer look. It's really hard to stay mad at you when you're always smiling like that, you know. He grumbled. Something in her eyes changed, another emotion leaking through her friendly facade. Not necessarily malice. More mischievous, maybe. I know, right? You should try it. Really takes the wind out of human sails when they want to pick a fight. An unpleasant memory reared its head in the fox's mind. I don't do that anymore. Huh? Why's that? She asked, her expression back to the pleasant smile. It's not important. He dodged. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean I don't want to know. She pushed. Look, he searched for her name, Topaz. Just drop it. But. Hey Whiskers, a new voice chimed in. Naruto's head immediately snapped in the direction of the voice, jaw set, eyes narrowed in anger. Whoa, easy there. Yang put her hands up in a placating gesture. Just wanted to meet your new friend. Topaz looked from Naruto and his slowly relaxing expression to the blonde girl's bewildered eyes darting back and forth between the two Fronis. You know this girl? She asked Naruto. Not really. He answered slowly. I mean, we were in combat class together for a year, but the most interaction we had was her handing me my ass every few weeks. He shrugged, seeing no harm in the girl's request. Topaz Smoke, Yang Xiaolong. Yang, Topaz. Nice to meet ya. Yang greeted, bouncing on the spot. And this is she started as she turned only to see empty space behind her. Not here. She frowned. Sorry, I was gonna introduce you to my little sister, but she's kind of socially retarded. Topaz suggested helpfully. Yang narrowed her eyes at the girl who was still smiling at her. I am, like, 1000% sure there's a better word than that, but kinda. She admitted. Suddenly, as the news was recounting the story of a string of robberies, the view screens vanished, replaced by a holographic image of a stern-looking woman with an incongruously sweet voice. Hello and welcome to Beacon. The woman spoke. My name is Glinda Goodwitch. You are among a privileged few who have received the honor of being selected to attend this prestigious academy. Our world is experiencing an incredible time of peace, and as future huntsmen and huntresses, it is your duty to uphold it. You have demonstrated the courage needed for such a task. And now it is our turn to provide you with the knowledge and the training to protect our world. With that, the hologram faded, and all of the students who had previously been watching it now saw out of the window their first view of their new home far off in the distance. Yang. Yang. A voice called from a nearby window. Look, you can see signal from here. Yang gave the two Fronis a lazy wave and smile before moving to join her sister at the window. Naruto wasn't paying attention though. Instead he was running the hologram speech through his head. Our duty to uphold peace, huh? Sounded like hold the line to him. Naruto's first impression of Beacon Academy was big. Big and fancy and extravagant and all sorts of other impressive sounding adjectives. Signal he could handle. One big building with a tower in the middle. Beacon. Over a dozen buildings the size of Signal, all with ancient inspired architecture to make it look even grander than it already did. The path from the airship to the academy proper was at least a quarter-mile long, and the only thing you could do while walking it was marvel at how impressive the academy was. A year ago Naruto had been living in a hole in the ground. The drastic change was making him dizzy. Shaking his head to clear the fog in his thoughts, he instead decided to focus on his acquaintance. Topaz had decided to walk with him to the academy. He wasn't sure what to make of her. She annoyed him but could smile and the feeling would go away. Related to that, he was uncomfortable with how easily she could manipulate him. The right tone of voice and that look, and he crumbled. He needed to figure out a way to avoid it in future. Pushing that aside, he tried to strike up a conversation instead. Didn't they tell us to be ready in our combat gear? He asked the girl. He was wearing his. Either her battle outfit was very simple, basically the same vest shirt pants outfit from when he met her, or she wasn't wearing hers. Her constant smile turned sheepish. My outfit is kind of heavy. And bulky. Not really the kind of thing I would wear unless I really need to. I asked ahead, and they said it's only for ceremony that we wear our fighting gear today, so it's fine. Heavy? Like armor? Naruto wondered, looking her over. That didn't seem right for a girl of her stature. Topaz noticed him looking and stopped, giggling. Like what you see? She asked, striking a pose. And so, faced with flirting so obvious the girl may as well have held up a sign with red flashing lights, reading I'm flirting with you, the Fox Fronis brain entirely locked up. All it could come up with as a response was a slightly slack-jawed Luckily for the vulpine teenager, the sound of something collapsing boxes saved him from saying something stupid. Head swinging around to observe the welcome distraction, he saw the girl in black and red from the airship on the ground being berated by some other girl in an outfit so wide it gave him eye strain to look at it. He was satisfied with just watching after mentally labeling white girl as a bitch and red girl as a doormat. That is until white girl pulled out a container of red dust and started waving it about wildly. Seeing something that could end in disaster, Naruto quickly moved to intervene, moving into the white girl's blind spot and snatching the small jar of red dust out of her hand. Wahey! She complained in a whiny tone. How dare you? Give that back. She demanded, reaching for it. Naruto merely swayed his arm back out of her reach. Not until you tell me who taught you how to handle dust. He denied, surprised by how much it pissed him off seeing someone do something stupidly dangerous. Crow must have rubbed off on him a little, he decided. I'm just minding my own business over there and then I see you yelling at some girl, then you start swinging this in front of her face like it's a salt shaker instead of an unstable explosive. Red dust isn't explosive, you dolt. It's combustible. The girl fumed, choosing to attack him back rather than acknowledge any point he was making. Now give that back before I report you to the authorities for stealing. Naruto rolled his eyes, reaffixing the stopper on the container so it was properly sealed before handing it back to her. In response, the girl turned with a HMPH. And an upturned nose before walking away. It was at about this point that Naruto's anger dissipated and his brain started to catch up to his actions and the facts of the situation. Namely, noticing the very obvious symbol embroidered into the back of the girl's dress. Oh, shit. It was very brave of you to stand up to her. A new voice said. Female. Naruto didn't turn to acknowledge the newcomer. Oh, shit. But her family is very powerful and is no friend to the faunus. You should be more careful around her. The new voice warned before walking in the same direction as the white girl. Since Naruto's eyes hadn't moved in the slightest, his barely functioning mind finally attributed the voice to the girl. Black hair with a black bow, black and white outfit. Oh, shit. During this little exchange, Ruby Rose got to her feet and looked at the two departing girls before switching to watching the blonde boy. Faunus. She amended her description, noticing his extra set of ears. Alright, Ruby. You can do this. Time to make a friend. Hi. No response. Hello. She repeated timidly. Are you okay? She asked, touching his arm. Yeah. Naruto yelled in alarm at the contact, eyes darting around searching for the hidden SDC ninjas he was expecting to hunt him down. Instead, all he found was the black red-haired girl that had been on the floor last he checked. Sorry. He apologized, trying to forcibly calm his nerves. You surprised me, you know. Sorry. The girl said before visibly gathering her confidence. I'm Ruby Rose. Ruby Rose, that's me. She exclaimed, her cheerful expression shaky as she realized exactly how stupid that sounded. Nice to meet you Rubrus. He laughed. I'm Naruto Fox. That's a weird name. Ruby commented before her eyes widened. I mean. Nah, don't worry about it, you know. I know it's weird. He admitted, smiling to put the girl at ease. Fox was Ozpin's suggestion since I didn't have a last name. Orphan and all. As for Naruto, I don't even know what it means, really. It's from this weird old language that had multiple alphabets, so it could mean a bunch of different things. That's kinda cool. Ruby observed before, again, realizing what she just said and rushing to explain. I mean, not the orphan thing. I mean the not knowing your name thing. I mean. Whoa, calm down. Naruto told her. Just take a breath. I'm not gonna get offended by saying something dumb, trust me. I do that all the time. Taking his advice, Ruby took a breath and figured out what she wanted to say. I meant it's cool how your name can't define you, since you don't know what it means or where it comes from. Like, my name's Ruby Rose and that's really similar to my mom's name and I ended up a lot like her. But my sister Yang's name is like our dad's and she took more after him. It's like, you don't know anything about your name, so it can't define who you are, you know. Naruto said eloquently. That actually is kinda cool. I never thought of it that way. Quickly looking around, he tried to find Topaz, but unsurprisingly, she seemed to have made herself scarce after the Schnee debacle. We should probably get going, you know. Yeah. Do you know where we're supposed to go? Ruby asked hopefully. I'm gonna guess the big building in the middle. If not, someone there can point us in the right direction. Naruto suggested. Great. Let's go. Ruby cheered. Inside, she was also cheering. I did it. Chapter 8. So Ruby started awkwardly, suddenly at a loss for what to talk about. The ice was broken, but she had no idea where to go from there. This was so much easier with her friends from school. They'd been her friends since conversations consisted of let's go play. So actually coming up with meaningful things to talk about with someone new as well, it was something she'd never had to do before. There was one thing she really wanted to ask about she thought, as her eyes drifted upward to his ears. Specifically the second set. You can ask, you know. Naruto told her having caught her staring. I wouldn't mind. Really? She checked, embarrassed at being caught. I can tell the difference between suspicion and curiosity. He answered with a grin that reached his eyes, lifting them in a vulpine fashion. You don't much deal with faunus. I don't think there are any on Patch. Oh, that's where I grew up. She clarified. So what's it like? The blonde gave her a blank look. What's what like? Being a faunus. Naruto felt his lip curl unpleasantly before suppressing the reaction. She didn't know but wanted to know, to understand. So pushing down the instinct to lash out against someone poking the proverbial bear, he did a quick 10 count in his head, loosed a deep vocal sigh through his nose and answered, expressionless. We're considered criminal by default, even if proven otherwise. It's near impossible to get paying work. Even if we do they can still refuse to pay us and get away with it because they're just faunus. We are denied any housing even if we can pay of course, because we're faunus, the money must be stolen, so we have to build our own homes. Which law enforcement will declare condemned and have destroyed on a whim. The best existence for a faunus is one where we stay hidden from humans. If we're discovered, best case scenario it's law enforcement who will punish us for vagrancy and any other crimes real or imagined. Worst case is the SDC come to drag us off to volunteer to work in one of their dust mines as slave labor. At least, Naruto paused, his face one of consideration. That's how it was in Atlas. It's better here. Not as much as I'd like, but at least we can live here, not just survive, you know. he said, finishing in a question as he looked back at Ruby, proud of himself for not going off on her. That was, until he saw the girl's expression. Like the shards of the moon had fallen on Remnant and killed her dog, like the world was more pointlessly cruel than she could ever conceive before the revelation. Ruby's mouth had gone dry. The words stuck in her throat, so she forced them out in a croak. I meant, what's it like having the cool extra ears? The small girl stared at the fox Francis unblinking as she waited for his response. He blinked. Once. Twice. TFF. The response she got wasn't what she was expecting. Ha 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 ha. Naruto laughed, a deep laugh. One that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, one that he really needed more than he ever realized. Ruby continued to watch him with a quizzical expression, not sure whether he was laughing at her or something else. Naruto's laughter died down, his hands went from his knees to wiping at his watering eyes. Oh, man. I had no idea how much I needed that, he said, lifting his head to look at the girl again, a satisfied smirk crossing his face. The girl in red remained confused. Glad I could help. I think. Seeing him then, she decided she preferred him this way. The doom and gloom didn't suit him at all. Without the dour attitude he was actually kind of handsome, and that smirk kind of reminded her of Uncle Crow. Having those two thoughts back to back was terrible, and she vowed to never let it happen again. They remained true, though. The fox Francis just had a look and air about him that was kind of like Crow's. Like he didn't have all the answers but didn't care and would just keep moving forward. She suddenly noticed at some point she had begun smiling too. And oh, man. They itch sometimes, you know. For no reason. Ruby giggled at her new friend's commentary on the ins and outs of Francis' ears as the two of them entered Beacon's auditorium. Seriously, no reason. One acid asked if I had fleas when I started at Signal. One douchebag comment followed me the whole freaking year. Huh. There he is. Naruto noted as he spotted and pointed out a weasel-looking boy with a green mohawk. He was talking with some retarded guy with fancy armor. Got him back for it though. That was a good day. The fox finished with a satisfied smile. The scythe-wielding girl nodded along as she observed all the new students filling the room, all of them seemingly taller than her. As she made a mental note to increase her milk intake, she spotted a mane of vivid blonde hair. Oh. There's my sister. She exclaimed before looking back at the fox Francis. It was nice meeting you and talking to you, and, we'll hang out after initiation, okay? Naruto nodded politely. It's a date. The girl's eyes widened as she stammered out a response. Sure. Yes. Sure. Gotta go. She babbled as she walked backwards away from him, her cheeks turning a vivid red. Going now. She turned and walked briskly in the direction of the blonde girl, mumbling to herself as she went. Nice girl, Naruto thought as she wandered off. Meanwhile, Ruby was quickly working herself into a panic. What did I just do? Why did he say did I agree to Yang? She ended her mumblings in a shout as she got within speaking distance of her sister. Oh, hey. How's your first day going, little sister? Yang asked, still facing the stage, looking aside at said sister. Oh. Well. It's going great, Yang. After you ditched me, I fell into some prissy girl's luggage, she yelled at me, then some guy came and saved me and we talked and he's kind of intense sometimes and did I mention he's a faunus, but he's really nice and he's handsome when he smiles, but then I think he asked me out on a date and then I think I said yes. Yang blinked as her sister gasped for air, having neglected to breathe during her tirade. Wow. When I said you should try and make friends you just dove in head first, huh? Help me. Ruby rasped, her begging expression showing just how out of her depth she had found herself. Yang sighed as she ran her younger sister's ramble through her head. It was something she had a lot of practice doing. Okay. So you met a boy? Yes. Ruby answered, nodding sharply. And you like this boy and think he's handsome? Yang continued. Well, we only met like a half hour ago, Ruby dodged, her cheeks flushing again slightly. But what you saw, you liked? Yang pressed. Maybe. The younger sister admitted, hiding as much as she could in her cloak. Yang immediately wrapped her sister in a crushing hug. Oh, you're so adorable. My baby sister is growing up. Yang. The smaller girl exclaimed, trying to push her sister's arms away. This is serious. Oh, no, I get it. Yang said, releasing her sister. Just got caught up in the moment, that's all. So you think he asked you on a date? Well, I said we'd hang out after initiation, and he said it's a date, Ruby quoted in a passable imitation of the speaker's slight rasping voice. Oh. Well, just because he said date doesn't mean it's a date. Yang tried explaining before something caught her attention. Wait, was that you doing an impression just now? And you said he was a faunus, don't tell me you're talking about. I'll keep this brief. The voice relayed through the auditorium speakers cut Yang's question off before it could form. The attention of all was suddenly rooted to the man on stage, seemingly appearing there without anyone noticing. You have traveled here today in search of knowledge. To hone your craft and acquire new skills. And when you have finished, you plan to dedicate your life to the protection of the people, but I look amongst you, and all I see is wasted energy. In need of purpose. Direction. You assume knowledge will free you of this, but your time at this school will prove that knowledge can only carry you so far. It is up to you to take the first step. The enigmatic speech from the headmaster was met with no applause. Not even a confused murmur. Just a sea of expressions ranging from quizzical to outright confused. As Headmaster Osborne vacated the stage, the deputy headmistress Glinda Goodwitch stepped up to the microphone. You will gather at the ballroom tonight. Tomorrow, your initiation begins. Be ready. You're dismissed. NGHHHHHH Naruto grumbled as daylight crept in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, glare shining directly into his face. Squeezing his eyes closed even more tightly, trying to fight it away, he tried to curl himself into the wall next to him. It might have worked if someone hadn't decided to thump him in his very exposed back. Good morning. A female voice lured from next to him, obviously the one that hit him. Would you hi me let me sleep, he grumbled. I don't get to hit in the corner, I suffer. The voice trailed off into a yawn. You suffer. You suck, Topaz. Naruto said, finally submitting to wakefulness and rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The girl, Topaz, yawned again. Sweet talker. For years you have trained to become warriors, and today your abilities will be evaluated in the Emerald Forest. The headmaster explained, standing before the entire freshman class of Beacon Academy. All of them were standing on small metal pedestals, seemingly arranged like the starting line of a race. Naruto was only half listening to the headmaster, distracted by those to his sides. On his left, Topaz, in what seemed to be an enormous amalgamation of heavy armor and hazmat suit of brown and red coloring, was blowing him a kiss. On his right, Weiss Schnee was willing him to freeze solid with her glare alone. He decided he was just not ready for today. Granted, he wasn't ready for any day where he was expected to wake at the crack of dawn, but also today in particular. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard rumors of the assignment of teams. Goodwitch continued, her short cape fluttering in the wind of the cliff top. Allow us to put an end to your confusion. Each of you will be given teammates. She stated, pausing for effect. Today. These teammates will be with you for the rest of your time here at Beacon. Osborne picked up. So it is in your best interest to be paired with someone with whom you can work well. Naruto faintly heard a girl squeaking in discomfort. That being said, the first person you make eye contact with after landing will be your partner for the next 4 years. The headmaster finished. There was a brief surge of muttered conversation at that pronouncement before Naruto noticed Topaz awkwardly trying to make a heart symbol with her hands' limited range of movement. After you've partnered up, make your way to the northern end of the forest. You will meet opposition along the way. Do not hesitate to destroy everything in your path, or you will die. You will be monitored and graded for the duration of initiation, but our instructors will not intervene. You will find an abandoned temple at the end of the path, containing several relics. Each pair must choose one and return to the top of the cliff. We will regard that item as well as your standing and grade you appropriately. Are there any questions? Yeah. Sir, one boy said, raising his hand awkwardly. Good. Now, take your positions. The headmaster ordered. Naruto watched as everyone got into what looked like a ready fighting position, apparently knowing what was coming. This was new to him, so he just did the same, unsheathing his claws and taking the opening stance of his own fighting style. As he glanced down the line, he saw the students to the far left start launching forwards into the air, one by one. Someone was saying something, but he couldn't really pay much attention with his heartbeat pulsing in his ears. This was some hardcore stuff they were doing on the first day. One by one they were launched. It creeping ever closer to being Naruto's turn. He fully turned to look at Topaz when it came to her. Nothing happened. Osborne's conversation with whomever seemed to pause as everyone looked at Topaz, wondering why it stopped. As the awkwardness built, Naruto started to hear a low, groaning sound. Like the straining of metal as it was stressed beyond its limits, before the groan became an ear-piercing screech followed by a mechanical clunk. Another awkward silence ensued, everyone continued to stare at Topaz in her enormous armored bulk. Slowly she raised her hand. I should just go, then. I guess. She hazarded, looking at the headmaster. He gave her a slow, hurrying nod. Yeah. She said as she started to walk to the cliff edge before dropping off it, feet first. Safe to say, the tension was broken, and Naruto wasn't given chance to worry again before his own pad launched him into the air. Chapter 9. The tiny black bird continued to glide gracefully as the four-eared blonde humanoid soared past it, beginning to arc downward into the forest below. The bird took little notice, choosing instead to enjoy its flight undisturbed. Birdie, no. Whump. Naruto struggled to take in a gulp of air. The air resistance from moving at high speed didn't make it easy. In hindsight, screaming out all his oxygen probably didn't help him at all, but potential imminent death seems to bring that reaction out of people. Okay, think. I can get out of this. The tree slowly moved up to meet him, promising pain on impact. Right, telling myself to think isn't thinking. Okay, grabbing a tree will break my arm, maybe if it was a clone. Not having a better plan, he put his hands together, spawning two clones that shared his forward and downward momentum. Each clone grasped one of the original's arms and reached outward with the other, hoping to grab something on the way down. As the three identical blondes passed through the tree canopy, the one on the left managed to snag a high branch with his claw blades towards the base. Three things happened in rapid succession. First, the momentum slowed slightly and shifted direction, slightly more forward than downward. Second, the claw blades and the clone's fingers broke from taking the impact poorly. Third, in reaction to the broken fingers, the clone vanished in a puff of smoke. As the other clone and the original continued moving, the second clone found it had more time to choose a good hold thanks to the lessened speed. Taking advantage of this, the clone spotted a good, strong branch before it came into reach and reached out for that one specifically, managing a full tight grasp on it as the two of them sank past it. As they dropped, the clone's arm took an enormous chunk of their momentum directly onto its shoulder socket, dislocating it and dispelling the clone. All that was left was a 10-foot drop to solid ground. Safe enough even for those without aura if you know how to land well. As he hit the ground feet first, Naruto took it on the balls of his feet and sprung forward in a roll. Taking a few deep breaths as he continued to ride the adrenaline, he slowly stood to his full height again, checking himself for injury. All things considered, he was a bit ruffled but otherwise, fine. Sheathing his claws, Naruto dusted himself off and started looking around. So, this is the Emerald Forest. He thought to himself. Doesn't really seem greener than other forests. Putting bland naming conventions aside, he started walking in the direction he had been launched, assuming that was the direction he was supposed to go. So I'm looking for relics. Relics that could be literally anything, but I guess I'm supposed to know them when I see them. Oh, and find a partner. Right. I could just double back to the cliffs and grab Topaz. Images flashed through his mind of him waiting on her hand and foot for the next 4 years. Nope. Pot luck it is. He decided resolutely, shaking the horrible mental images away as he kept walking. Come on. How bad could it? He stopped walking as a cracking scream cut the air above him, followed by a loud thud and a wooden grinding. Dropping through the canopy, a blur shot past him, embedding into the tree and sliding down it, cutting 2 gouges into the bark with a pair of daggers. The form ripped its weapons from the tree and stood, taking a deep breath and revealing to Naruto's eyes a green mohawk. Time seemed to slow down for the Fox Fronis as the other boy he now knew to be Russell Thrush turned around. Ooh. Even his internal scream of anguish was slowed down to a bassy moan of horror, even as Russell dusted himself off and looked up to unwittingly lock eyes with Naruto. Crap. Russell moaned, thrashing his head back before cradling it in his arms. Naruto's eye twitched. Hey, if this makes you miserable at least I get something out of it. Topaz yawned as she dropped like a lead weight off the cliff. She was a little embarrassed by the shenanigans with the launch pad and the fall down the cliff was worryingly long, but none of that overrode the early whack-up call. Bears were not morning animals, and neither was she one. At around halfway down, her descent seemed to slow. Gradually at first, then down to 1/10 of her previous velocity as she hit the ground in the ruins below, bending her knees to absorb what force remained. That wasn't so bad. She mused to herself before looking back up. Trip back up won't be as fun though. Shrugging, deciding such things were future Topaz problem, she started to wander towards the forest, absently humming a random tune. Watching the sky above she looked for the student who got launched the shortest distance. He'll do. She decided as she saw one barely even reach the forest. The two new partners, Russell and Naruto, were getting along as well as one might expect. They walked side by side, though not out of camaraderie. No, both boys just refused to let the other move ahead and take the lead. Further, neither would look at the other. The silence was tense. And awkward. Naturally Naruto felt compelled to break it. So. He started, still looking ahead. Russell's head twisted in the Fox Fronis's direction, before quickly looking ahead again. 4 years of this? Naruto observed. The mohawked teen stayed silent. That would suck. Naruto decided. It took a while, but eventually he earned a response. Yeah. Russell answered sharply. Right? Naruto asked, finally looking at the other boy. So here's my thought. How about we bury the hatchet, you know? I forgive you for making my year at Signal a constant headache, you forgive me for whatever it is you think I did to wrong you. Being a faunus, I guess. He hedged, glancing away as he scratched behind an ear. The other boy worked his jaw to the side, considering. Alright. He nodded as he stopped walking, Naruto doing the same and facing him. Alright. You wanna have this out now? We can do that. I don't trust you. He said firmly, poking the Faunus in the chest. Here's what I know about you, Naruto Fox. You started Signal in your final year. No history, no weapon, no gear, no fighting style, just your semblance. And yet you get put ahead right to the front of the pack. Ahead of all the people training to do this for years. And yeah, you're a Faunus. I got a problem with that. Because all I hear about Faunus is those freaks in the white fang gunning down people in the street. And that on top of everything else makes me wonder why you're really here. Huh. Naruto responded eloquently. Well, here was me thinking you were just an asshole who hated Faunus. See? We already understand each other better. Russell just waited for a real answer with narrowed eyes. Okay. We'll do the cliff notes of my life story. But let's walk and talk cause this could take a while. The Faunus suggested, starting to do just that. So, grew up in Atlas. Don't know if you've ever been, but it's a bad place to be for Faunus. No real paying work, no schooling, unless you get real lucky, a lot of the time no housing either. And just about everyone there hates Faunus. One day I get cornered by some humans. They were teenagers and I was, like, 5. It's how I got these. He explained, pointing to his whisker marks and tracing one. Mark of the beast, they call it over there. Anyway, that experience is how I unlocked my semblance and I used it to escape. Then let's skip ahead a bit. About a year and a half ago I'm in charge of getting food for the group of Faunus I'm looking after. We basically, well, literally live in a hole in the ground. While I'm doing that, some humans catch wind of me and go Faunus hunting. One used to be a huntsman and uses his weapon to clear out a huge section of dirt. He doesn't find us, but he does find a whole mess of Grim digging a tunnel for a future incursion attempt. Looking back, he noticed Russell's doubting look. Hey, you can look this up later. Or ask Osborn about it. He knows the whole story. Anyway, I'd been following these guys in case they found our home, and when I saw the Grim I got my family outside and I went to help fight. The huntsman was surprisingly okay with it, given he'd been trying to kill me before that, you know. After it's all over, I get locked up for conspiring with the Grim, still don't know how you do that, and my family get taken by the SDC for community service. Okay, come on. Russell interrupted. There's no way they'd blame a Grim attack on people. Aren't you trying a little too hard to play the victim here? In response, Naruto leveled a deadpan stare at the boy. 5 minutes ago you were labeling me a terrorist for going to school, it's real easy to paint a Faunus as a monster. Russell opened his mouth to retort but found he didn't have one. Withdrawn. Naruto rolled his eyes. Again, this is all still public record. Both Schnee painting me as the villain and the huntsman basically calling him a moron in his own special way. Moving on. He said with finality as he started walking again. At some point Headmaster Osborn got wind of all this. Don't ask me how. Hell, ask him. I wouldn't mind knowing. I guess he likes to scout students sometimes when he wants someone for Beacon, but they wouldn't normally go. He pulled some strings, got my family to Vale with paying work, got me exiled from Atlas, and brought me here too. I guess he thought the effort was worth a trained huntsman with my semblance. Looking back yet again, all he got was a skeptical look. Pull the other one. And also that. Naruto let out a quiet growl. Fine. Everything I've said you can look up. But okay. Point proving time. He said firmly before putting his hands together. In a wave of smoke, the blonde and the mohawk were surrounded with identical copies of Naruto. Scout the forest. All of it. He ordered, the clones immediately scattering in different directions. 2 minutes later. Ruby Rose and the Schneeris just set a tree on fire. That way. Russell looked in the direction Naruto was pointing and saw smoke rising. 30 seconds later. Some guy with a pink streak in his hair just killed a Tajitu. 3 minutes later. There's a cave in that direction. Naruto pointed. That guy who threw up on the airship and some girl I'm pretty sure I saw on a cereal box once are going in. Oh, you mean Puranikos? Russell asked, suddenly excited. Man, she's hot. Running the memories back, Naruto nodded in agreement. Yoop. Suddenly another wave of memories hit him. Ah, lucky. He exclaimed. We're a little off course. The relics are this way. Looks like we might be the first ones there. So what's your deal, anyway? Isn't all that stuff heavy? Cardin asked his new partner. He felt like even he would have trouble with all the equipment he was seeing on the girl. And he was sure it was a girl. The voice was a dead giveaway. Not only was it a girl's voice, it was a girly girl's voice. Nah, don't you worry about me, big guy. I've been training in this getup for a couple of years now. No problem. Came the chirpy reply from the ominous mass of metal and whatever else it was made of. So what inspired it? Oh. She giggled. You can blame daddy for that. There was her voice hitched slightly, an incident. And from then on he got a little overprotective. So he borrowed some heavy insulating padding from the fire station and got a friend to, misplay some pieces of their heavy ride armor. Put it all together and you get the solid smoke suit. Most huntresses go for being an unstoppable force. I am the immovable object. She finished proudly. Huh. Cardin shrugged. Inside her armor, Topaz smirked. With a giggle, she holstered her weapon, an ungainly contraption of hoses and valves, connected directly to her armor, and took off running. Race ya. Cardin blinked in surprise at how fast she could move before grinning and giving chase. Naruto looked out at the ruins in puzzlement. He saw the relics and true to his theory, he recognized them on seeing them. But something still felt off. Is it me or does this seem weird to you too? He asked. What's weird about it? His partner asked, inspecting the relics on the plinths. I mean, doesn't it feel anticlimactic? Naruto pressed. We're in a forest supposedly filled with grim. Ozpin was all kill or be killed but nothing. No Ursa, no Beelzebubs, not even any of those little mole bastards. What you're doing right now, that's called tempting fate, Fox. Russell observed before cocking his head to the side. Mole bastards. Those mole grim, the diggy ones. Naruto clarified, walking toward the relics. Seeing the still confused look on his partner's face, he shook his head. Trust me, they're bastards. Looking through the different relics, he sighed. Chess. Not my game. Shrugging, he picked one up. Alright, job done. Let's go. In mid-reach, Russell looked at his partner, back to the relic, and shrugged. Alright. As the two stepped away from the plinths, another wave of memories struck the fox faunus. Huh. Looks like we have company. He told his partner as he looked up to the cliff nearby. Hey Whiskers. Yang Xiaolong shouted as she waved from the cliff. You really shouldn't call him that. Her new partner said quietly, not even needing to look at the target's expression to know it would be taken poorly. Lighten up a little, Blake. The blonde chided before jumping down the small cliff with practiced ease. Taking a deep breath in, Naruto nodded. Yep, that's our cue to leave. He said quietly. There's the relics, have fun girls. He said louder before pointedly walking away. Geez, rude. Yang groused, watching the two walk off. Next to her Blake sighed, knowing she would need to explain something awkward now. Not far away, yet another reunion was happening. And not a good one. Hey Naruto. Topaz waved. Following after, a familiar red-haired boy in armor ran into the clearing. Oh, hey Russ, how's it oh, man? He cut himself off as he spotted the blonde. Russ, did you draw the short straw or what? How's pet ownership treating you? Chapter 10. Whoa, wanna run that by me again? Naruto tried to say. Cardin spoke over him. I wasn't talking to you, furball. Russ, make sure you get this thing neutered so he doesn't get so agitated. Naruto was stunned speechless. It had been a long time since a human mouthed off to him like this. It had come as a surprise that no one had done it in Vale. And in Atlas he avoided humans because talk like this would happen. And when talk like this happened, well, he hadn't been the helpless Faunus in a long time and he was often happy to prove it. As the saying goes, them were fighting words. But funnily enough, he didn't feel like fighting this time. All he could do was bwahaha. Oh, I'ma kick your ass later for that, but it was pretty funny. I wasn't talking to you. Freak. Cardin said in what would be an intimidating tone were it not for his constantly cracking voice. On the other hand, his looming was working wonders. Easily passing 6 feet tall and with a muscular build, he loomed over the smaller fox Faunus menacingly. Naruto cocked his head to one side, trying to decide if throwing down would be worth it to put the larger boy in his place. Then, a look of slight fear passed over his face, disappearing quickly. The fox shrugged and walked around the armored retreat. Russell stayed where he was, not really knowing what to do. Then he heard the vacating Faunus shout over his shoulder, have fun with the giant grim coming this way, big guy. Cardin scoffed, rolling his eyes. TCH. Giant grim. A Faunus telling lies. What a shock, right Russ? Russ? He questioned, having looked back to find Russ wasn't there. Looking around he saw the Mohawk teen jogging after the Faunus. Later, Cardin. Russell shouted over his shoulder. Either Naruto was lying to save face or he wasn't. But from what Russell had seen there was a good chance the blonde was telling the truth and it wasn't a risk worth taking just to see Cardin make everyone uncomfortable. So Miss Rose and Miss Schnee are hanging from a Nevermore in flight, Miss Nikos is fleeing from a Deathstalker, and Mr. Fox is of the opinion he and Mr. Thrush are being tracked by another large grim. Glinda Goodwitch listed off as she moved through different camera feeds on her scroll. Oh, and Mr. Lai and Miss Valkyrie have slain a King Tajitu and an Ursa, respectively. Not to mention the small army of minor grim the other students have battled through. This year's initiation is a surprisingly lively event, wouldn't you say, Professor Ozpin? Ozpin hummed in response as he sipped his coffee. We have been observing an increase in grim activity recently. It isn't all that surprising that it is also true here, even this close to Beacon. In his other hand, his own scroll beeped, the screen showing another relic had been taken and by whom. Oh, dear. Glinda looked at Ozpin expectantly. In answer, he turned his own scroll to face her, showing her the first confirmed team. Oh, dear. So is there actually a giant grimoire? Russell asked hesitantly. There was one. Naruto answered, Russell breathing a sigh of relief. Now there are three. That cave I talked about before. The one that Puru girl found. Giant scorpion grim inside and chasing them right to the relics. And Ruby and the Schnee heiress are well, he pointed as he continued to run. Russell turned in the direction the faunus was pointing and saw high in the sky a giant nevermore. And a pair of red and white shapes in its talons. Yeah. Naruto continued. Don't know how that happened, but one of my clones saw those two get taken up. Hope Ruby comes out of it okay. And Schnee? Russell asked, not wanting to ask about the thing Naruto was avoiding. Eh? There was an awkward silence. Finally, Russell felt obliged to ask. And the third? The third he started before he got another burst of memories. Is currently killing all of my clones. And it's following us. The green-haired teen immediately unsheathed his daggers. What is it? How close? The tremor shook the ground. That close. Naruto answered. And all my clones saw was a huge pair of jaws. By the way, don't get eaten. It sucks. Boss. The two of them heard. Looking in the direction of the shout, they saw another Naruto moving their way by hopping from tree to tree. Up. Move up. It comes from it shouted in warning before its sentence was cut short. A pair of long, narrow, enormous jaws snatched the unfortunate clone mid-jump. In the same bite, the jaws ripped a chunk out of a tree, enough that the top half of said tree broke off and plummeted to the ground. A split second for the words to register and the clone's memories to sink in was all it took. Up. Climb the trees. Naruto shouted, unsheathing his claws and taking his own advice, using the claws as makeshift pythons. It wasn't long until Russell followed suit, resheathing his daggers and using his own manual agility to climb his own tree, slightly higher than Naruto. What do we? Russell started to say quietly until he saw Naruto putting his finger to his lips. A tense few seconds passed as they waited to see if the Grim would appear again. That tension was not broken, but multiplied tenfold when another voice broke out. The hell are you idiots doing in the trees? The cracking voice of Cardin Winchester mocked. Cardin. Russell shouted down, get into the trees. There's a Grim. Yeah, and I got into your mom last night. Whatever, man. If you wanna play grab us with your pet in the trees that's your business, but don't drag mo shit. Cardin screamed in alarm as he was tossed in the air in a similar way as he had entered the forest earlier. The jaws of the Grim had risen underneath him and sent him skyward. What the shit? Yeah, like he said, there's a giant Grim. Naruto repeated as he watched Ariti try to swat away the jaws of what was now clearly an enormous crocodile Grim with his mace. In truth, it looked like the Grim was playing keep up with the armored teen. I mean, I figured since it was coming from underground, it had to be using sound to track my clones and kill them. That's why we were being quiet. The crocodile tossed Cardin into the air again and opened its jaws wide to snap shut on him. Well, it looks like you got this handled, so we'll just. Would you shut up and help me? Cardin screamed as he held the jaws open beneath him. Unfortunately for him, this wasn't a cartoon and the immense strength of the crocodile's jaws overcame him quickly. Luckily, the jaws snapping shut flung him outwards rather than inwards, sending the teen sprawling across the dirt and into the trunk of one of the many nearby trees. Fate seemed to be playing a cruel game with Cardin Winchester today. Oh, my. Augustine. Ozpin exclaimed, showing an unusual amount of surprise. An amount a majority of people would describe as mild. I haven't seen one of those since my last visit to Shade. I wonder how it got all the way over here. Ambush hunting Grim, if I recall. Glinda added. Able to move through earth like water but needs to surface to breathe. Many a seasoned huntsman has been caught unawares by one and killed without getting the chance to draw a weapon. Indeed. Ozpin agreed. Fortunately, it seems Mr. Fox's team had some forewarning. Now all that's left is to see if they can find the most efficient way to destroy it. Or at the very least, escape it. With a swipe of his finger, the headmaster pulled up a second camera feed next to the one he was watching. It seems Miss Rose and Miss Nico's teams have elected to flee their current aggressors. A wise choice. Glinda opined solemnly. It's good they understand already that the Grim are merely an obstacle. Knowing to put their objective first is commendable. I'm not going anywhere until I freaking murder this thing. Cardin hissed from his new place in the boughs of a tree. Hey, you want to start a vendetta with something that could eat all of us in one bite, be my guest. Meanwhile, I'll be working on an escape plan. Naruto crossed his hands and a carbon copy of himself appeared on the ground below him and started running full speed towards Beacon Cliff. It was eaten almost casually 5 steps in, the Gustin staying at surface level for a moment, watching those in the trees with its solid red eyes. In turn it gave the boys the chance to study the beast. Black, like all grim. Bone-white plating lined the jaws, and the beast's teeth protruded grotesquely out of its mouth. Compared to the jaws, the rest of the Gustin's body seemed comically small, somewhere around a third of the size. At least, that's what they could see of it, it's still being semi-submerged in the earth. As it began to slowly sink once again, it let loose a gurgling, croaking growl. Well, that was just unsettling. Naruto slumped. Okay. Fighting this thing and the floor is lava. We need to either stop it hiding the croc sank fully out of view again like that, or we need to limit where it can rise. I can do that last one. The 3 boys slowly turned to look for the source of the voice, familiar only to 2 of them. On yet another, especially sturdy-looking tree branch stood Topaz. Her innocent smile conveyed even through her concealing helmet. The branch she stood on visibly bowed under her. I have so many questions. Russell brushed a hand through his mohawk, completely uncomprehending of the circumstance. Let's just Naruto started before immediately giving up. You can keep it buried. Totally. She chirped, presenting her weapon. This little baby is a modified dust-powered emergency service issue fire extinguisher. At receiving only blank looks, she explained further. It sprays a dust-reactive gel that adopts the property of the dust being used. Usually it's ice dust for putting out fires. But I modified it to have multiple chambers so it can do that, and she paused, rotating a dial around the barrel firing at the ground below her. What came out was not a freezing gel. Instead it more closely resembled napalm. Pre-lit napalm. Sprayed on woodland underbrush. But I'm from a cold climate. Will that spread? Naruto asked, haltingly. Nah. Topaz waved off the possibility. Below her the flame spread to a bush. I mean probably not. The fire spread to another bush in the opposite direction. There's only so much ground it could cover, right? I mean sure if something were to start spreading it around. Attracted by the voice above, the Gustin surfaced directly into the patch of gel, its menacing growl turning into an agonized roar. In panic and pain, it flailed its head around trying to put out the inextinguishable flame by smashing it into whatever it could find. Such as trees, long grasses and other foliage. Topaz wilted under Naruto's glare. We should go. Well, that was Osmond began, but failed to follow it with anything. They set the forest on fire. Glinda said flatly. Well, yes. The headmaster admitted. But it worked. He added with a half shrug to his deputy. She merely glared at him in response. I'll just call Barty and have him put it out, then. I think that would be best, sir. Huh. Naruto said, taking in the spectacle before the 4 of them. The Gustin no longer a concern for them, the 4 new students of Beacon headed back towards the cliff to finish their initiation. In doing so, they caught the tail end of the fight occurring there. One side of the now even more ruined ruins, 4 students including Per and Ikos had managed to kill a giant scorpion grim with its own stinger. On the other side, Ruby Rose was decapitating a giant bird. After running up a cliff face. As if in contrast, Naruto turned to look at the path they came from. The orange glow of the forest fire they accidentally started still visible. Anyone else feelin' kinda what's the word? Naruto paused and thought. Inadequate. Russell suggested, glum. Yeah. That. Naruto agreed, mirroring Russell's mood. Nah. Carton shrugged. I'm pretty awesome. Naruto scoffed. You keep telling yourself that the next time you get eaten by a crocodile. I'd say bite me, but I don't want rabies. You don't need me to bite you anyways. Crocodiles got you covered. There was an awkward pause as Carton adopted a contemplative expression. Good one. He said eventually, sounding genuinely impressed. Then he punched the fox Faunus in the back of the head and walked toward the cliffs. Ruby Rose, Wai Shni, Blake Belladonna, Yang Xiaolong. The initiation was complete. All the new students that were going to return with relics had done so. And so what followed a handful of hours later was the team formation ceremony. Held on stage in the auditorium, it was witnessed by staff and all returning students of Beacon Academy. A true welcome for the next generation of huntsmen and huntresses. You retrieved the White Knight pieces. Headmaster Osmond continued. From this day forth you will be known as Team RWBY. Led by Ruby Rose. He announced, receiving polite applause from all in attendance. Their part in the ceremony complete, the 4 girls moved back, replaced by a group consisting of 2 boys and 2 girls. John Ark, Nora Valkyrie, Per and Ikos, Lai Ren. You 4 retrieved the White Rook pieces. From this day forth you will be known as Team JNPR. Led by John Ark. The headmaster announced again. Wah? Emmy? The so-named blonde boy asked as he pointed to himself. Congratulations, young man. Osmond said, smiling slightly. Sharing in that congratulations, Purah playfully punched her new leader on the arm, accidentally knocking him to the ground. With a sheepish smile, she helped him to his feet and nudged him back with the rest of their team, making room for a rather less jovial group. The golden-haired fox Francis with a look of begrudging acceptance. A boy with a green mohawk who seemed to be appreciating the celebration as much as he could, given the circumstances. A bare Francis girl who had adopted a posture and expression that showed she had closed herself off entirely. And a tall red-haired boy glaring daggers at the lone girl. Naruto Fox, Cardin Winchester, Topaz Smoke, Russell Thrush. The four of you retrieved the Black Bishop pieces. From this day forth you will be known as Team NCTR. Led by Naruto Fox. As though a switch had been flipped, Cardin's eyes moved from the bare Francis to his left to the fox Francis on his right. The look on his face screamed if he could get away with snapping the blonde's neck right then and there, he would. Guston, pronounced Guston. Crocodile variety of grim. Most common in the desert surrounding Vacuo, Guston are ambush predators, capable of devouring a human in a single bite, with only a fraction of a second of warning. Their ability to move through earth means any humans walking the sands must remain on guard at all times. Based on the Roald Dahl story The Enormous Crocodile and named for the giant crocodile Gustav, rumored to have killed 300 people. Chapter 11. 305, 306, 307 308. This one. Russell exclaimed as he found Team NCTR's assigned dorm. Oh, cool. It even has the name on this panel here already. In our colors too. The two of his teammates that were following him looked for themselves and found that indeed, very quickly between the team being formed earlier that day and the present, the door had already been labeled with their team name, team colors, orange, red, brown and green, and their four personal identifying symbols. The teens suddenly realized why their registration had asked for those things. Evidently they would be using those signifiers to indicate them as much as if not more than their names. Below the room number and residing team was a small scroll reader. Russell passed his over the scanner and the door unlocked with a click. Taking point once again, Russell opened the door and peeked inside. His teammates were bemused by his caution. Why is he being weird? Topaz asked her Francis teammate. Before any response could be made, the two were surprised when Russell threw the door open and ran in. Dibs on back right. The two Francis' eyes widened as they realized the sly game Russell had been playing. You can't call dibs from outside the room, so the Mohawk teen had positioned himself to be the first inside, with plenty of time to figure out which bed was the best. Thus the two Francis were left to face off against one another. Despite the lag of that realization setting in, the two moved so simultaneously it was like a starter pistol went off. With Naruto being closer to the door, Topaz took drastic measures using her semblance in hopes of bumping the fox Francis off the wall and halting his momentum. Unfortunately for her, the combined forces pushed him through the door instead, though bashing his face into the doorframe as he went through. Taking a quick glance around he made a snap decision. Dibs back left. Damn it. He heard from above him. Topaz slumped her way through the door over him, politely not stepping on him as much as she might have wanted to. Looking around, she shrugged. Huh. That works for me. I'll take back right. Closer to the bathroom. Great. Naruto said flatly as he rubbed at his squished nose. So where's our fourth gone? Russell asked, already relaxing in his new bed, scribbling in a notebook. Don't know. Naruto answered. But I have a guess. Linda Goodwitch, if one were being charitable, could be described as meticulous. She favored order and organization in all things. Perhaps that was why her semblance was telekinesis. The ability to move objects and put them in their proper place. Perhaps that was why her office at the ground floor of Beacon Tower was the epitome of organized workspaces. Desk placed perpendicular and equidistant to the entrance and the elevator to the higher floors. The desk itself was bare, save the work computer, some neatly organized files and a single photo of herself with her sister. Behind her desk in the corners of the room, two floor lamps emitted a soft light. On the opposite side, a comfortable if simple waiting area sat. Couch seating and a water cooler the only notable furniture. After a long, stressful day, Glinda herself was sat at her desk, taking one of her very few calm moments to enjoy a novel before the madness of the school year and the upcoming Vital Festival fell upon her. It was a silly story. A group of children using their monster summoning semblance to solve a murder mystery. Somehow. Silly or not, it was very light-hearted. Something she needed when her day job involved sending children to what might be their death. An escape to a more peaceful world. So one might not be surprised that when Cardin Winchester disturbed that peace by slamming her door open, breaking it off the hinge, blowing the files off her desk and marching into her office like he owned the place, she reacted. Well, she reacted with the patience and dignity of someone who has had to put up with petulant children like this for a decade, actually. Slipping a bookmark into her reading material and placing it on the desk, she rose from her chair to address the teen. Is there something I can do for you, Mr. Winchester? The wording was a question. The tone was a demand. Hardin, still in his armor from initiation, regarded her for a split second before moving towards the elevator and pressing the call button. "I'm going to see the headmaster." "Not without telling me why, you're not. Professor Osborn is a busy man and that elevator requires staff authorization to use." Her arms folded, her riding crop was visible resting on her arm. "Why are you here?" "He made a mistake setting up the teams. I'm gonna set him straight," he stated with 100% certainty. "The faculty didn't set the teams. You students did. If memory serves, you paired with Miss Smoke and took a bishop piece, partnering your pair with the other bishop piece pair." Of course, her memory of it was perfect. She was fully expecting an outburst like this from someone on that team. "Yeah. And then you set the mongrel to be the leader. Clerical mix-up. It happens. I'll fix it." "Well, that's a special level of delusion," she thought to herself. "Mr. Winchester," she began before a beep from her scroll notified her of a message. "Send him up." Sighing through her nose, Glinda put her scroll away. "It seems Professor Osborn is willing to see you. Be respectful or I will make you respectful. Am I understood?" she asked as she moved around the reed and swiped her scroll over the elevator controls. Arms folded, Cardin's only response was to lightly shrug his shoulders. The low hum of the elevator rising towards the headmaster's office was the only sound in the small confines. Neither had anything to say during the trip. Glinda had nothing to say now that Osborn had decided to step in and Cardin deemed her not important enough to bother talking to. The humming ceased as a ding sounded indicating the elevator had reached the office at the top of Beacon Tower. Silence fell but was quickly swallowed as the doors opened. A quiet cacophony of clockwork clicking suffused the space the two stepped into. Cardin's intentions of rushing towards the professor to demand explanations and catch him off guard were squashed as he marveled at the intricacy of the room's decor. So distracted was he only realized there was someone else in the room when they spoke to him. "Mr. Winchester," Osborn said, sat behind his desk, hands steepled in front of him. "What can I do for you?" Cardin jumped on hearing his name, looking from the gray-haired man back to the ceiling. Hearing the question, he shook the errant thoughts away and refocused himself. "You need to fix my team." Osborn's posture didn't change. His expression remained an enigmatic smile. "Is it broken somehow?" The boy's face showed incredulity. "Yeah. You put a dog as the leader instead of me." "Mr. Winchester," Glinda admonished loudly. She would have continued if not for Osborn subtly waving her off. "He's a fox, actually," the headmaster said still with a slight smile. Cardin looked at him as if he'd grown a third head. "You how know? What the hell is wrong with you? Animals on my team I could handle. They're freaks, but they need a human who can give them a kick to keep them in line. I get that. But putting one as a leader?" Osborn inclined his head slightly as if accepting the comment. "Very well. Tell me, what makes you believe you would be a capable leader?" The boy snorted as if the answer was obvious. "I'm strong and I know how to keep people in line." Rising from his seat, Osborn nodded. "I see. Let's take a look at how you displayed those traits during your initiation, shall we?" Tapping at his scroll a few times, a holographic screen appeared between Cardin and the desk. "Let's begin with your strength." On the screen, footage of Cardin scrambling to stay out of the crocodile Grimm's mouth appeared. Physical strength, yes. I'm not showing too much real combat prowess, however." "That's not fair. That thing ambushed me," the boy whined. In response, the footage was rewound. "Cardin. Get into the trees. There's a Grimm." "Yeah, and I got into your mom last night." The screen disappeared, revealing Osborn raising an eyebrow. "What?" Against his will, the headmaster's jaw hung slack for a moment. "You were warned about the Grimm attacking." "Yeah, as if anyone would have believed that. You were given a warning about an attacking Grimm while in the middle of a forest filled with Grimm. And you chose to completely ignore that warning. That doesn't show aptitude for leadership. That shows incompetence." "Hey, where do you get off calling a Winchester incompetent?" Cardin said, raising his voice as the professor started speaking over him. "Let's look at you keeping people in line next, shall we?" Again, the screen appeared. This time a sequence of events showing Cardin talking down to, insulting and belittling half of what later became his team. And them basically ignoring him. Even the one member he at the time got along with took the lead instead of him. "So, to review," Osborn announced. "You belittled your teammates, pushing them away. You utterly failed to intimidate them into following your lead. The one teammate that you didn't treat poorly still took the lead better than you did. And the one time you faced a Grimm you showed dangerous levels of incompetence. Quite frankly, Mr. Winchester, if you have problems with Mr. Fox leading your team, know that I would rather put an actual fox in charge instead of you." With that, the screen vanished again and Osborn sank back into his chair, returning to the paperwork he had been working on previously. Noticing the teen hadn't moved, he looked back up at him. "Was there anything else you needed, Mr. Winchester?" Hardin felt his fists tighten. The urge was there, but he recognized it as a stupid one. Instead of doing what his heart wanted to beat the smug expression of the man's face, his head won the battle and he stiffly turned, walking back to the elevator. On the way down, Professor Goodwitch informed him he would be in detention for the next week for his words and for his disrespect. So how'd it go? On returning to his assigned dorm, Hardin's eyes flicked to the blonde pest that asked the question. Sat at one of the study desks, feet up on it, rocking back on his chair as he craned his neck to look at the Winchester. Hardin ignored him, walking over to and flopping down onto a bed, staring up at the ceiling. The fox frowned sked. The silent treatment. What are you, 5? The retard continued to ignore him. Guess it didn't go your way then. Well, you're 0 for 2 on your bluster getting you what you want, you know. I'm sure you'll figure out it won't work so well for you here. Eventually. Hey, that's my bed. The sole female occupant of the dorm squeaked as she came out of their ensuite bathroom in her pajamas. They were printed with a little cartoon bear wearing a yellow hat. Hardin glanced down the length of the bed at her standing at the foot of it. His eyes met hers before they flicked up a little. A sneer passed across his face and he turned his head away, dismissing her existence. Topaz felt her fists clench. They had gotten along so well during the exam and in the space of an hour, that camaraderie had been replaced by open scorn. She swallowed thickly. Fine. She said placidly as she began rooting through the drawers next to the retard's beady. Guess you won't be wearing the girl's uniform tomorrow, so I'll move all this stuff over here where I'll be sleeping. She dumped her clothing on the bed to be sorted next. But since you've decided to claim that area, I guess I'll have to move all the stuff I unpacked for you out of here. Within the span of around 15 seconds, she removed Hardin's clothes and equipment from what had become her area and threw them on the floor of his. Job done, she started putting away her things again before another thought struck. Oh. Also. E-Day. Hardin's reaction could best be described as nonplussed. Petty spite like this is all the animals were capable of, after all. Going unnoticed in all of this, Russell was left to his own thoughts. The current thought being he was glad Hardin hadn't been chosen as leader. Still, if only he hadn't been on the team at all. Chapter 12. Good morning, Glinda. Good morning, Professor. Glinda trailed off as she stepped into the beacon courtyard and witnessed controlled chaos. Ozpin. Fascinating, isn't it? Ozpin asked as he took a sip of his coffee. What he was referring to was a flurry of students dashing back and forth between the campus buildings. At first it seemed at random, but on careful inspection the two professors could see some unspoken coordination between the students. Or student, singular, might be more accurate. Plural grammar is complicated when it comes to clones. What are they doing? Glinda found herself asking after watching Mesmerized for quite some time. Learning their way around campus, I suspect. It always amuses me to see how people adapt the shape of their souls to such mundane tasks. Very poetic, sir, the huntress said, rolling her eyes as she knew it was at the least a small digger using her semblance for such mundane tasks. While she understood Ozpin treating them with some amount of reverence, she couldn't help but feel doing so was limiting their potential. Well, I'm off to get the combat stage prepared for today's classes. Good day. And to you, Glinda. As she headed for her destination, Glinda noticed she had one of the blondes tailing her, trying not to be discreet. I suggest you don't make a habit of stalking people, Mr. Fox, she said aloud and kept walking. Hey, Ruby, over here, Naruto shouted on seeing his first friend at Beacon enter the Grim Studies classroom, but trailed off as he saw the rest of her team following her and realized who was on it. Naruto. The girl cheered before blurring into the row in front of the Fox Fronis and most of his team. Wait, where's your fourth? She asked, confused seeing only 3 of his team there. One of his teammates, the boy with a mohawk, hooked a thumb behind him, pointing at a burly retard in the back row. Throwing himself a pity party for not being the leader of our team. Hi, I'm Russell. Topaz. The only girl on their team cheered. Ruby Rose. Leader of Team rwby. Nice to meet you guys. The younger girl was overjoyed she was making more friends already. And this is. Why Schnee. The white-haired girl cut in coldly as she took her seat. We've met. Yeah, Naruto agreed, rubbing the back of his head, ears twitching nervously. Naruto Fox is my name. Maybe we could start over. Clean slate. No. Oh. 'Kay then, Naruto shrugged. He tried. Lake, the dark-haired girl introduced herself curtly but not unkindly. Yang. The blonde imitated her partner with more exuberance. So you guys cut it close. You end up getting lost? Naruto asked. Nah, Yang answered for the team of girls. We were so busy decorating our room. We made bunk beds. Ruby cheered. But we lost track of time. Oh, that makes sense, Russell nodded. We did that last night. We were all so pooped after initiation and fighting that Nevermore and the Deathstalker we pretty much just fell into bed last night. Ruby explained as she sat down. Tilting her head back, she saw Naruto looking down at her, the pair grinning at each other. Monsters? Professor Peter Port bellowed as he slammed open the teacher's entrance door. Demons. Prowlers of the night. Yes, the creatures of Grimm have many names, but I simply call them prey. Hardin waited for the rest of the class to leave, taking the opportunity to continue his brooding session. The class was dull on its own, an old bloward blowing himself hard as he talked up his grand accomplishments. Seeing that pompous Schneegirl nearly get chumped by a Borbodisk. That was fun. Watching the animals and that traitor making nice with her team, not so much. Watching the last of his classmates leave, he stood to leave himself, following the others. Best to stay away from the others or he might do something he'd greatly enjoy in the moment but end up regretting later. Or that was his plan until he was confronted by the lead animal in the hallway. So? How long you plan on keeping this up, Cardin? The fox asked, arms folded. Out of the way, freak. Okay, I kinda get that appealing to your conscience and desire to be a decent human being is a dead end. Cardin snorted. What would you know about being a human being? In any case, Naruto growled, you get that the way you're acting you'll just end up getting kicked out, right? You understand that? Iridid stayed silent. Get kicked out. Work with animals, under an animal. Both options were unacceptable. The faunus eyed, scratching at one of his fox ears. Look, at this point I don't want to work with you either. You're an asshole. And you have no desire to not be an asshole. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's have this out. You and me, one-on-one spar. We can ask to do it in combat class and if not we can do it after hours. I win, you can be an asshole all day every day. But in classes, in missions when we start doing them, you're part of this team and you work with us. How about you blow me? How about you understand your situation a little, you know? Naruto barked back. Whatever. Either way, the spar is probably happening in combat class tomorrow. I'll beat your ass until you see sense or you can get your ass kicked out and we'll get a new teammate. And with that little challenge, ultimatum, whatever done with, the blonde left the retreat to continue stewing in his own dissatisfaction. It turned out, asking to spar in combat class was a bust. It turned out Professor Goodwitch did allow volunteers for sparring practice, but she also saw straight through Naruto's reason for it. In her own words, you can get your macho posturing out of your system on your own time and not drag it into my lessons. Instead, they got to see Purr and Icos dominate some blonde guy named Dove, Ruby Rose and Lai Ren dance around each other for 20 solid minutes, and finally Russell got to pick apart John Arc, who seemingly didn't know how to use his shield. But, with combat class ending the day. Class is dismissed. Team NCTR, you wish to use the space. Glinda received nods from the blonde team leader. Very well. To avoid anything untoward happening I shall stay and spectate. Rules from class still apply, or in the red, the match ends. Am I clear? Yes ma'am. Naruto answered before jumping down to the stage. Unseen but not unaware to both combatants, the class hadn't left at the end of class. A common understanding seemed to pass across the room that something interesting was happening. In particular, a certain little Red Reaper moved her way to the two last NCTR members still in the stands. What's going on? Are you guys that eager to practice? Naruto's trying to, how should I put it? Settle a dispute. Russell tried to explain delicately. Topaz snorted. Cardin hates Faunus and wants to be leader. That if Faunus was made leader instead of him has made him the pissiest little bitch in Vale history. Oh, I get that. We had a see me Ruby started but trailed off as she realized she was still in earshot of a certain heiress. But why are they fighting over it though? She asked instead. Behind her, said Eris rolled her eyes and looked back to the stage. Because they're boys, Topaz said with her own eyes rolling before glancing at the boy among them waiting for a rebuttal. Russell, who continued to watch the stage, eventually felt the two girls' eyes on him and adopted a questioning expression. What? She's right. Dudes fight all the time, especially over things they think matter. They'll hit each other a bunch and bleed out some tension. The two girls looked at one another, shrugged and went back to watching the two teammates face off. So we doing this or what? Cardin sneered, arms folded, looking down on the fox Faunus, both literally and figuratively. In a practiced movement, Naruto's hands passed over each other and his fingers flexed, releasing his claws. Ring the bell, teach. Linda's eye twitched at the disrespect and promised herself she would have words with the Faunus. A 3-count siren blared and on the third, the taller boy charged forwards, mace drawn as he swung his right hand across himself and pulled back for a one-handed swing, only to abandon the swing to block a hail of bullets on a collision course with his face. Holding up his mace. He continued to charge. And his foe continued to move away. Do you not have anything for range there, Big Red? Naruto taunted as he continued to dance away from Cardin, the larger boy utterly unable to keep up. This is gonna be a bad day for you if not, you know. Get over here and fight me like a man, freak. But I thought I was just an animal, Carden. Naruto questioned rhetorically as he continued to take potshots at his leisure. Having trouble chasing down the stupid beast. Huh. What happened to all that shit talking you were doing, huh? Brah. Carden yelled as he brought his mace around with both hands in an enormous swing. Still yards away from his opponent. And then the wind kicked up. From nothing, a gale force wind swelled behind the reteed swing, slamming into the Faunus who was completely caught off guard. He barely managed to retain his footing. Then the second wave hit. How did Naruto not see that coming? Ruby asked in the stands. Does he not know his own team semblances? None of us really fought that much in initiation except Naruto. Russell started to explain. Hey. Topaz interrupted with a pout, I killed that crocodile Grim, thank you. In response, Russell just stared her down. Topaz gradually wilted under the stare. Yeah, okay. Anyway, me and Topaz talked about ours. Important information, right? Things we all need to know about each other if we're going to fight monsters together. But Carden's. The Topaz finished. Well, she's not wrong, Russell agreed. Really, Naruto's at a disadvantage here on paper. Carden knows Naruto's semblance, but Naruto went into this blind. Down on the combat stage, the situation had not so much reversed itself as evened out. Naruto was still much faster than his opponent, but he had to spend most of his time predicting and bracing for the wind instead of going on the attack. Okay then, he said with gritted teeth as he crossed his claws together in a lattice, only to abandon the pose as the wind he was braced for never came. Instead Carden was once again barreling forward to close the distance. What's with the crossed fingers thing? Ruby asked. Russell scratched his chin. It's basically like a mnemonic. You know, like we learned as kids for the pointless history stuff. Oh yeah? Ruby exclaimed, like that poem for Valiant Kings. Daniel, Douglas, Debonair. Robert rolling down the stairs. Right, like those, Russell interrupted, mostly to not hear the whole poem. He uses it to get in the right state of mind to use his semblance. He says it's like he has to believe he's in two places at once or something. I didn't really get it. So what is his semblance? Ruby asked. You don't know? Russell asked, surprised. You guys seemed close yesterday. They met 2 days ago, Topaz chimed in. Oh. Huh, Russell said eloquently as he observed the stage for something in particular. Well, looks like he's about to show you. Down on the stage, Naruto had failed to keep his distance with Carden's new tactics. Every time Naruto managed to get space, Carden made a wind-producing swing to halt him, or he didn't, feinting to get Naruto to hesitate and allow Carden to close. Thus a pattern emerged. Naruto would get distance for a moment before Carden would close again, and the two would engage in a quick melee, Naruto dancing around Carden's lumbering swings, while Carden aimed for the one big hit that would turn the bout around. However, at some point, Naruto stopped trying to get away. The dance continued for longer than it ever had before. Naruto constantly moving into Carden's blind spots, leaving little stabs and cuts behind every time he managed it, coming closer and closer to getting brained by Carden's mace at every turn. Carden was starting to sense a trap. And as his mace finally connected and the Naruto he had been fighting for so long vanished in a puff of vapor, Carden finally gauged his surroundings. And then it hit him. At one moment, that one time Naruto had done that stupid pose he had made a clone. And at some point, probably during one of the times they were fighting close in, the Faunus had switched with it. And with that time he had been given by Carden focusing wholly on that clone, Naruto had spent his time making more. A lot more. Glancing at the scoreboard, the Faunus was at half aura while Carden was at a third. At a quick head count, he saw around 24 clones in front of him. He didn't see the one behind him. And then it hit him. Chapter 13. I believe I said the combat class rules still apply, Mr. Fox, reminded Glinda as she irritatedly tapped her arm with her riding crop. Well, a shiner never killed anyone, right? Naruto laughed nervously as his taller teammate glared at him, one eye already starting to purple. Attention, Mr. Fox. Rats. Now, if the two of you would clear the field. Anyone else interested in a round of ungraded sparring? As the two tromped their way back into the stands and one exuberant girl challenged Nikos, Carden turned his head a fraction of an inch in the direction of his teammate. When did you switch? With the clone? Naruto asked, the first time you got close. Just after I slipped between your legs it came around under your arm, so it would look like I just looped back around. I kept taunting you on purpose, makes you lose focus, you know. Carden just grunted in response. Do you ever think of using a shield? Naruto asked. You're not exactly agile so it might be good to lean on standing your ground instead. Your pea shooter is kind of useless, Carden retorted. Naruto shrugged. A little on its own. It's not meant for stopping power. It's a distraction on its own. But multiplied by 20 of me? Yeah, but 20 of you with stopping power would be way better. Heh. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. All good? Russell asked as the pair made it back to their team. The best they were going to get from Cardin was a vaguely affirmative grunt. Naruto shrugged. I'll take what I can get. Hey Naruto. Your fight was cool. Said Ruby, enthusiastically but quickly. On looking at her, Naruto saw she was already watching the next bout. Also your gun sucks. Wow. She can use her hammer as propulsion, that's so awesome. Thanks. I think. Naruto said, confused. And so, time passed. Weeks of it, in fact. Cardin's less tolerable tendencies seemed to fade away from the day of their first combat class onward. Well, they disappeared when dealing with the team. Outside their team he was almost as much of a douchebag as ever. As such, anyone he gave crap to was informed by the rest of NCTR to just give as good as they got and they wouldn't intervene. If Cardin needed to learn not to be an asshole, why not? It could be a fun group activity. As such, Cardin's target started to favor people that wouldn't fight back, such as John Ark. He wouldn't fight back and his team for some reason stayed out of it. Topaz wanted to intervene on his behalf, but Naruto pointed out they didn't want to restart the intra-team feud again. If Ark wouldn't stand up for himself and his team wouldn't have his back, that was their own fault. That was the point of having a team, after all. Classes were had. Lessons were learned with varying levels of difficulty. Team NCTR had wildly varying levels of ability when it came to schoolwork. Russell was capable in standard curriculum classes such as history and economics, while Topaz flourished in them. Naruto and Cardin on the other hand, well, Cardin was lazy and uninterested in such things, and Naruto had only had a single year of standard schooling, so was far behind. The class Naruto did have great aptitude for, however, was the survival course taught by Professor Peach. Having lived in semi-wilderness for parts of his life, he had already learned a lot of the classroom material just by his own experience. And of course there was combat class. They weren't so much graded in that class as given positions on a leaderboard. It wasn't a class one could fail, instead the students were motivated by the spirit of competition and a desire not to get beat up every few days. Nikos took the top spot from the first week and never slipped. The legend of the invincible girl continued. In comparison, her fearless team leader sank like a stone to the bottom and never rose an inch. It became a running joke that getting paired up against John Ark was getting a free win. Team NCTR had no such wild differences in ability. Topaz and Cardin sat relatively low on the leaderboard due to their lumbering movement speed. Very often they suffered defeat by 1,000 cuts. Topaz wasn't made for duels, so saw this coming. Cardin was becoming more aware of his lacking combat style with every match. He was very much feeling a change in equipment was in order. Russell sat comfortably in the middle of the pack, capable but not remarkable. And Naruto did better than he expected. Top half of the table resting in the middle of the members of Team rwby, a team he had only faced a single member of. The fight against Blake Belladonna was sadly a foregone conclusion. Her semblance was effectively a less versatile version of his, so he was prepared for every trick she had with it and then some. She was a better fighter, but the disparity between the strength of their semblances and their aura reserves was too much to overcome. Oh. And there was one other event of note. Fox boy. A familiar voice bellowed as teams NCTR, RWBY and JNPR entered the Beacon Fitness Center in workout clothes. Oh no, Naruto moaned as a few details of the past year fitted into place. Lane moved to Vale. Lane left for work every day but didn't say where. Lane was a retired huntsman. Lane was obsessed with fitness. Lane had contact with Osborne. Lane was the fitness coach for Beacon. You have arrived. Blaine continued to speak in his lack of an indoor voice as he swept Naruto up in an entirely unasked for hug. Here to tread the iron path with me once more. Come. Introduce me to your friends that I might demonstrate to them the greatness and majesty of Broden's ways. Naruto. Ruby asked hesitantly, you know this guy? Naruto gasped out, still in the grip of a human more bear-like than Topaz could ever be, was my guardian when I was at Signal. Blaine put me down, damn it. My apologies, Fox boy. Blaine apologized as he put Naruto down, the fauna stretching upon his newfound freedom, joints cracking back into proper place. I didn't realize you would grow soft in your time away from Broden's mighty embrace. Not to worry. We shall rectify this travesty. To the squat rack. As the group of 12 teens watched the eccentric muscle-bound man strut his way further into the fitness center, John Ark asked, didn't he want to do introductions before? He gets easily distracted by thoughts of working out, Naruto explained. You'd think it'd be a good thing that you could get him off your back so easily, but the beast of a human noticed he wasn't being followed by a fox Franus and doubled back so fast Ruby thought they shared a semblance, picking Naruto up by the head and carrying him away. He'll just drag you into it anyway. He seems pretty intense, John noted as he watched an accepting Naruto start doing squats, as though this exact scenario had played out 100 times. In truth, it had. And Naruto had learned to stop fighting the inevitable. He's amazing. Nora squealed, voluntarily following the two and joining in. Praise Broden. Praise Broden. Nora shouted, not really knowing who that was but also not caring. Yang shrugged. Well, I came here to work out so whatever. Hey, Blake, you mind spotting for me? Before heading to one of the benches. Man, this school is weird sometimes, right Carden? Asked Russell only to see the redeed had disappeared. Carden. Praise Broden. Praise Broden. A chorus of voices answered the fitness coach from various stations, Carden having gone to work on his shoulders, Purah doing crunches and Topaz doing pull-ups. Those left behind, those of the group one might consider on the daintier side, and yes that included Russell and Ren, were left to wonder if this was how cults were formed. Team and CTR were relaxing in their dorm room, combat class having been earlier in the day, so they took the time to recuperate. Not that all of them needed it. Carden had gotten his free win so he was right as rain. It was a warm night. They had left the windows open to get a comforting breeze through. There was the drone of voices coming from above them but they didn't pay it much mind. At least at first. Wait, Carden suddenly said. Is that Ark and Nikos? The rest of the team stopped what they were doing and listened. Sure enough, the nasal voice of John Ark was clearly audible. I'm gonna listen in, Carden announced quietly as he crept towards the window to hear better. Carden Topaz sighed exasperatedly. Shut up, alright. I'm not gonna bother him, just listen in. And as he listened, he knew he was right too. You're wrong, he heard Ark say. I don't belong here. That's a terrible thing to say, of course you do. No, I don't, the boy said loud enough that the team below him didn't even have to actively listen like Carden to hear it. I wasn't really accepted into Beacon. No way, Carden breathed. What? Russell asked. SHH. Russell crossed the room to listen at the window as well, and then the other two fell under the spell too. What do you mean? I mean I didn't go to combat school, I didn't pass any tests, I didn't earn my spot at this academy. I lied. I got my hands on some fake transcripts and I lied. What? But why? Because this is what I've always wanted to be. My father, my grandfather and his father before him were all warriors. They were all heroes. I wanted to be one too. I was just never good enough. Then let me help you. I don't want help. I don't want to be the damsel in distress, I want to be the hero. John, I'm tired of being the lovable idiot stuck in the tree while his friends fight for their lives, don't you understand? If I can't do this on my own, then what good am I? There was a long awkward pause. Just leave me alone. Okay. If that's what you think is best. Carden got a devious smile on his face and started to climb out the window. Naruto made a couple of clones and dragged him back out of it. Hey, what gives? Topaz, get the windows, said Naruto as he slumped into his desk chair. With a gesture, Topaz used her semblance to shut the windows and dull the sounds of her shouting, what a piece of shit. As she began to pace angrily. Whoa, okay. Russell blinked at the abrupt change. Was not expecting that from you, Tope. You heard what he said. He faked his way in here. Do you have any idea how hard it was to test into Beacon after I didn't get into combat school? I worked my butt off every day to make the cut and he just waltzes in with no knowledge, no training, no nothing, it just erg. You're not wrong, Naruto admitted. Osbin might have had my back, but I still had to get in on my own merits, you know. It's just I mean I wouldn't be here without Osbin so I can't really. At least you work at it. Topaz cut him off before he could finish. You learned to fight better, got me and Russ to tutor you in history, you accepted help. He just got all that from maybe the best fighter in the entire school and he just slapped it away because he wants to be the hero. Like he's a 10-year-old playing play pretend instead of in a school for fighting monsters. Okay. Russell said in a soothing voice, we get it but let's just take a deep breath, okay? Stop talking to me like that. I'm angry, not a baby. Russell just waved his hands in front of him in a gesture of surrender. Well we know about it now, Naruto sighed as though he really wished he didn't. What do we do about it? I say we screw with him, Carden said immediately. That's your answer to everything, said Russell, rolling his eyes. Any suggestions that aren't just Carden doing Carden things? Naruto asked. We tell the headmaster, Topaz said, her tone not clear on whether that was a suggestion or a demand. Okay, we'll call that the gravity bomb option, Naruto said with raised eyebrows. Anything not quite so severe? We could. Carden, you're gonna screw with him no matter what we do. Let it pass. We could go to his team, Russell suggested. Purah obviously knows but the other two don't. Maybe they can. What? Topaz asked snidely. Offer to help and get shoved aside like the invincible girl just did. What will that accomplish? Dope. No. He doesn't get to come to the school, take the place of someone who earned it, and blow off training to bitch and moan about not being the hero. Someone like him being here is a liability to himself and his team. We've got the forever fall trip coming up and summer missions after that. Is his team gonna have to baby his dumb ass through all that? If he stays, he's gonna get them killed. The room got quiet at that. None of them were under the illusion that it wasn't a possibility. JNPR were effectively a three-person team, without a leader. Arguably two if one would have to babysit the person who was supposed to be their leader. Naruto broke the silence. I'm waiting for a counterpoint. He was hoping for a counterpoint. He didn't get one. Telling Ozpin, raise your hands. Topaz shot up. Russell's raised, as did Cardin's. Naruto's reluctantly went up as well. I'll talk to Ozpin in the morning. Mr. Fox. Can I help you with something? Professor Goodwitch asked on seeing the blonde enter her office. It was a Saturday so he had eschewed the academy uniform for his combat attire. The students were encouraged to wear it often to acclimatize themselves to it. I was hoping to see Oz the headmaster. Can I ask what this is regarding? Is it about your team? No, it's about another team, Naruto said vaguely. I'm afraid the headmaster is a busy man. If it's a inter-team difficulty you'll have to work it out between yourselves. Naruto awkwardly scratched at his ears. It's not someone has done something that the headmaster needs to know about, you know. Linda's eyebrow raised behind her glasses, but she waited for confirmation or rejection from the headmaster, who was doubtless listening in as always. Seconds later she received a message to send the Faunus up. Very well, the headmaster will see you. Follow me. Naruto followed the professor into the elevator and immediately felt awkward being in an enclosed space with someone and not talking. So how's the teaching thing? She almost let slip what might theoretically be called a smile. It seems to be going quite well. How's the learning thing? The teacher asked in turn. Pretty good. Still I'm bad at history, but my team are helping. Their showing in combat class is quite good. Looking forward to challenging the top 5. Goodwitch asked, remembering she hadn't paired him against any of the strongest fighters yet. N.O.T., really? He answered nervously. I've got a long history of Yang kicking my hind from back at Signal. Not looking to continue the trend. Have you considered upgrading your equipment? We have excellent facilities for maintenance and forging available for students. Naruto rubbed at his neck, yeah, I don't really know how to do that. Maintenance, sure, but I don't know how to build stuff. People keep telling me to get a heavier option, but I wouldn't know where to start. Have you considered asking Miss Rose? Glinda suggested. The two of you seem quite close, and she is something of a savant when it comes to forging equipment. Really? Huh. Thanks. I'll see if I can owe her a favor, he said, before adding wow, this elevator ride is really long. Quite. The elevator slowed and opened, allowing the passengers to finally escape out into Ozpin's office. Much like his teammate before him, Naruto marveled at the clockwork core ticking and clanking away above him before focusing on the man himself. Mr. Fox. To what do I owe the pleasure? Ozpin asked as he leaned forward over his desk. Naruto sighed, took a deep breath in and out through his nose and started talking. Okay, my team found out something about a student and we decided that it would be best for everyone involved if I came and told you about it, you know. I'm afraid I don't. To what are you referring? Another breath in through his nose. John Ark's transcripts are fake. The sounds of clockwork filled the silence so well it was like they were designed for it. What makes you say that? Ozpin asked eventually. My team heard him telling his partner about it. That he got hold of some fake transcripts and forged his way into the school. Professor Goodwitch rejoined the conversation. That's a very serious accusation, Mr. Fox. But I assure you we will investigate thoroughly and, if true, I assure you, Mr. Fox. John Ark's transcripts are quite real. Naruto's head tilted sideways so suddenly you could hear his neck click. I'm sorry, what? His transcripts are genuine. Would you like to see them? The headmaster asked, pulling up a file on his computer. On the holo screen appeared a complete file on John Ark, singing praises of his capabilities academically and in combat. See that there? Ozpin asked, pointing to the corner where a seal of approval sat. That is my own seal. These transcripts are genuine because I wrote them. I'm sorry, what? Naruto repeated, not understanding in the slightest the way the meeting was going. Do you recall when we spoke on your family's farm, Mr. Fox? When I told you why I was so invested in recruiting you? You said it was because of my semblance. Correct, Ozpin nodded, rising from his chair and moving around his desk to speak to Naruto eye to eye. You have a powerful, versatile semblance. One that could impact humanity's fight against the Grim in many ways. Finding you was a stroke of luck. But for some, it can be predicted when such a semblance will appear. Mr. Ark is one such person. John is like me, Naruto realized, the thought having occurred the night before, but he never imagined it could be as true as it was. His circumstances when he joined Beacon are more dire, I admit. I'm most likely pushing things in regards to him. He is untrained. But the good he might one day do outbalances the risk of having him here. The wheels in the fox's brain squealed in protest as they tried to process this revelation. But he doesn't even want to train. He just wants to be the hero. Well, that is a problem, Ozpin said openly. One you have my every permission to solve however you see fit. If Mr. Ark shows no improvement by the time you all take missions in the summer, I will have him removed. But until then, I hope your team and his will bring him up to our standards. Can I trust you with that? Success or failure, Mr. Fox, I will bear you no ill will. Or even if you choose not to involve yourself at all. Choice is a gift, after all. Naruto felt numb when he left Ozpin's office. Professor Goodwitch had told him she needed to speak with the headmaster privately and so wouldn't accompany him in the elevator. He was left on that long journey back to the ground floor in a metal box, entirely alone with his whirling thoughts. Ozpin. The man was a strange existence. They hadn't interacted at all since Naruto had been set up with Blaine. He thought he had a handle on the older man, but he now knew he had barely even scratched the surface. His actions concerning Naruto himself had seemed entirely altruistic at the time. He had said he would take no for an answer if Naruto rejected the offer. But Naruto now began to wonder if he only said that to more assure Naruto's agreement. Or perhaps it was both. He would take no for an answer, but saying he would take no for an answer made a yes more likely. He had seen nothing, even with this new information, that implied Ozpin would force anyone into anything. But he was very good at convincing people of his way in things. So it wasn't pure altruism. But honestly, that was fine with the Fox Fraunus. Maybe a little disappointing. But more realistic. He was well familiar with such quid pro quo arrangements, having arranged many himself. Was the favor Naruto gave worth the favor Ozpin gave? Was his life and service worth the safety of his family? 1,000 times, yes. Personal crisis resolved, Naruto left the elevator and Glinda's office with only thoughts on the Ark situation. It remained true, Ozpin hadn't pushed John into anything he hadn't willingly agreed to. The boy didn't even know he was playing to Ozpin's tune. Did that matter? Naruto couldn't bring himself to think it did. The boy was very clear that he was only concerned with his own desires and ambitions. So really, it was John's own. No. Naruto couldn't bring himself to think like that. As many problems as he had with how John acted and thought, he couldn't dump the consequences entirely on the boy. Naruto had been like him at one point, though he wasn't basically a grown man at the time. Brash, self-centered, thinking of himself first and others maybe eventually. Harsh experience knocked that kind of thinking out of him quickly enough, fair to say life didn't give John quite the same kick in the pants. So maybe someone needed to. It wasn't a terrible thought. Someone needed to get John's head out of his ass. Ozpin pretty much implied Naruto could do what he wanted to rectify the situation. He could get Purah to fix it, but Naruto had never been one to get other people to do the work for him when he could solve a problem himself. Though there was no way he could pull it off without her. Getting John's head out of his ass was one thing. Letting him fighting fit was entirely another, and Naruto had no idea how to use a shield. Or a sword. Definitely not both. And so Naruto began to plot. He had the seed of an idea, and if it was properly cared for it could bear fruit to solve multiple problems at once. Later that day, John Ark was innocently returning to his dorm, preparing himself to awkwardly avoid his teammates as much as he could in a single dorm room. When suddenly, he was accosted. Assaulted. Manhandled by dastardly ne'er-do-wells. Eek. He yelled in an assuredly manly tone. Not the face. He cried, defiant to the last. He struggled, refusing to give in to these ruffians. Okay, you know what? NCTR were kidnapping John, and he was being a drama queen about it. You know the score. Unfortunately, what's going on? I heard a girl scream. Purah yelled as she flung open the JNPR door. John. She gasped as she saw him being carried away. Shit, Naruto thought as he heard the invincible girl's voice. Well, it wasn't quite to plan, but they could work with it. Quickly making a clone, it moved to the rear of his team to cover their escape, John hanging limp over Cardin's shoulder. Muahaha. The clone cackled. We have abducted your fearless leader. Why hi. John cried off in the distance. Well, we captured your leader, at least, the clone corrected. And we shall do dastardly things to him unless you follow and yipe. The clone squealed as a spear that hadn't been there before was suddenly in front of his face. Where was she keeping that? What are you doing, Naruto? Purah asked firmly. I'd expect this from Cardin, but not the rest of your team. Well, there's a funny thing about that, Naruto said, stalling to see if the other pair from JNPR were around. They didn't appear to back Purah up, so he was safe to assume they weren't. Shouldn't he be getting himself out of this? the clone asked with a sardonic smirk. After all, he doesn't want to be the damsel in distress for you to save, he wants to be the hero, you know. It took a moment, but Purah connected the dots quickly enough. No. Yeah, the clone nodded, the smirk turning more frustrated than anything. Turns out that roof you guys yell at each other on is right over our dorm. Funny, right? Anyway, since you decided to be a soft touch about it, we've decided to take matters into our own hands and give your leader a bit of a reality check. You're welcome to come along. No doubt it'd be good to have someone who knows how to use a sword and shield around, but we're also going to be pretty safely squared away as people John doesn't like by the end of this. So do what you think is best, you know. For you, him, your team, whatever. We'll be in sparring room 2 if you want to get involved. The clone dispelled itself, secure that by then she wouldn't be able to catch the rest of the team before things got underway. And so Purah was left in the dormitory hallway, trapped in a choice between damaging her team or her relationship with John. Meanwhile, the entirety of Team NCTR made good progress to the sparring room, Cardin slamming the more lanky teen down ass first on the sparring ground. Oh. John squealed despite having activated his aura, preventing any injury. Okay, Cardin, I know you have your fun at my expense, but don't you think this is maybe crossing a line? Wasn't my idea. Huh? John asked as he looked around him and for the first time took in, he wasn't dealing with just Cardin, but all of Team NCTR. Okay, what gives? Cardin's one thing, but I know I didn't do anything to piss all of you guys off. Rwby, Topaz, the bear Frona said sarcastically. We should all get along. After all, we all have the same common ground, working hard to get into Beacon, right? Dope. Enough, Russell said, the faunus letting out a grunt and storming off towards the wall below the stands, arms folded and glaring. Naruto, trailing behind the others just in case Purah followed aggressively, approached the blonde. Here's the thing, John. We heard your I'll call it like it is, you know. We heard you yelling at Purah last night. How much did you hear? Naruto felt a spike of irritation that the other boy was still trying to pretend he wasn't in as deep shit as he was, but he pushed it down. How much do you think we heard, John? Do you think we heard the part where you admitted you got into this academy hilariously unprepared for what you'd be doing? Or the part where you admitted to multiple crimes? Or the part? The slam reverberated around the near-empty arena, Purah Nico standing in an open doorway, head down, bangs obscuring her face. Quietly, she walked down the aisle of the stands before sitting respectfully, hands clasped in her lap. Or the part where you spat on a genuine offer of help because you wanted to be the super special boy that saves the day without having to put in any of the work like the rest of us. Purah, why? John asked as he saw her, ignoring the Fox Furnace's words since she entered the room. Why? Naruto asked, grabbing John's face and forcing his focus. You spat in her face last night and you have to ask why she might be letting this happen. Let me tell you something, Johnny boy, Naruto sneered as he borrowed Cardin's nickname for the blonde, just so there's no confusion, you know. She didn't know this was happening until she heard you screaming and came to save you. Even though you slapped her hand away before, she still just wants to help you because she gives a damn. You want to be a hero so damn much? Learn to put yourself aside like she does, you know. He yelled, shoving the boy back. Now, Naruto continued, here's what we're gonna do today. We booked this room all day. And we're going to spend the entire day drilling into your stupid conceited brain how to hold your own in a fight. This is not gonna be a fun day for you, but if you really don't want to be a damsel, you'll thank us for it in the end. You ready? Chapter 14. The training was long and grueling. They started from the basics of the basics. John first learned how to fall in a way that wouldn't cause himself injury. And as the day went on, he would become more and more glad of that being the first lesson. Next, because none of Team NCTR knew well how to use a weapon with a shield and Purah wasn't volunteering, still just watching in the stands, they instead had John abandon both for the time being. Topaz taught him some very rudimentary hand-to-hand. Proper stance, posture, positioning, and finally teaching him how to throw a punch that didn't embarrass the both of them. When the blonde finally had his feet under him properly, Naruto stepped in. Brawling. Street fighting. Dirty tactics. How to survive if the blonde were fighting for his life well without his weapon. Or with it. Most of the tactics weren't invalidated by having more dangerous implements available. As that was going on, a clone of Naruto was in the stands one row behind Purah, leaning on the back of the seat next to her. So. We don't know how to use his weapons. You wanna help? The invincible girl remained silent, just watching. We can help some, but I'm not gonna pretend. You're the one he really needs here. I know, she whispered. I know he needed this. Or something like this. And it's better we show him than a grim. But. Naruto wasn't inside her head. He didn't know what her worries were. So he gave her time. To collect herself, to find out how she wanted to phrase it, whatever she needed the time for. In the end though, it wasn't him she confided in, that she trusted in. Instead, she simply rose from her seat and walked down the aisle towards the sparring ground. The clone popped, the realization that it wasn't needed, that Naruto wasn't needed for that situation after all. It was a pleasant feeling when people could solve their own damn problems sometimes. Are you ready, John? Hurrah. At your gear. Arm yourself. The disheartened John grabbed his sword and shield and held them in unsteady hands. Immediately she got into his personal space, grabbing his shield arm and raising it in a proper ready position. Here, she said, ready to deflect, tilting the surface of the shield, or block, flattening it to form a wall in front of him. And your sword, she said, moving around behind him to his other side, don't lead with it. If you're using a shield, lead with your shield. Ready your sword behind it for a thrust or a cut, understand? I guess we don't really need to be here anymore. Russell half said, half asked. Not really, Naruto said with a satisfied smile as he waved his team towards the exit. I'm gonna stay, Carden said, planting himself in the front of the stands. Naruto looked to Russell, then Topaz, then shrugged, creating 3 clones to sit in the back of the room to make sure Carden didn't do something stupid. You could just ask to join them, you know. Carden looked at his team leader like he was an idiot, then just turned back to watch Sword and Board 101. Naruto shrugged again and headed for the exit himself. It was still pretty early in the day. Plenty he could still do, so he figured he'd try his hand at the other team he was relatively close with. As he approached the Team RWBY dorm across from the JNPR dorm, right back to where he had started this bizarre day, he knocked and waited patiently. Finally the door opened a crack, a somewhat damp Yang leaning into view. Hey, why Naruto? What's up? Hey Yang. I was looking for Ruby. She's in the machine shop. Working on her significant other, the blonde said with a roll of her eyes. What? Her weapon. Crescent rose. You've seen how she is with it, Yang added. You've got stiff competition there. At the risk of repeating himself, what? She rolled her eyes again. Figures. You know where the machine shop is? Yeah. Cool. Later, she said, closing the door. Naruto turned to make his way to the machine shop before the blonde girl opened the door again, wider this time, so he could see her whole face, instead of just her eyes and hair. Hey Naruto. Yeah. Sorry about calling you that other thing. Blake told me about what those marks were and I'm really sorry. Blake told her. Naruto wasn't surprised. It was clear Yang really was sorry given how she couldn't even look at him while saying it. That's okay, you didn't know. But I appreciate you saying that. Cool, Yang said once again, closing the door. And opening it again. Hey Naruto. Naruto, openly laughing at this point, turned back around again. Yeah. The laugh choked in his throat. This time she wasn't just leaning around the door. The door was once again open even wider, enough to reveal Yang had apparently just got out of the shower and was only wearing a towel. Naruto struggled to maintain eye contact for fear of what would happen if he didn't. Yang, apparently satisfied that he managed such a Herculean feat, nodded sharply. You break her heart, I break your legs. And with that, she slammed the door shut. And Naruto was once again left asking the empty hallway, what? Receiving no response whatsoever and seeing Yang was definitely done confusing him this time, he finally made his way to the machine shop in the main school building. As he entered, he found himself once again in a wonderland of machinery and mechashift technology. He had used the facilities before as part of his weapon maintenance, Signal having a much smaller scale version for its students. But he was 100% aware he had no idea what most of the machines did or how they functioned. Seeing an upper year student not doing anything, he approached them and asked, hey, you seen a girl about yay high, black and red, kind of hyper, has a side. The student nodded, pointing at a door with a sign that read testing range. Heading through, the blonde was met with the loud repeated bangs of high caliber gunfire. Thanking gods above and below for aura and its myriad protective abilities probably saving his very sensitive hearing, Naruto followed the sounds to where he figured he would find Ruby. And sure enough, there she was, aiming down range with her weapon in its would that be like a shotgun form? No, it was still a rifle. Compact form. That would do. She was aiming down range waiting for her target to come back in. Hey Ruby. Naruto called. Head twisting, the dark-haired girl saw her frontis friend, Naruto. Hi. Just a sec, okay. Putting thoughts of him aside, the girl took down her target and saw the shot spacing. Not enough. What are you working on? Target practice? Naruto asked. The girl continued to mumble to herself before realizing the boy was talking to her. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to tighten up the recoil and accuracy for the rifle mode of Crescent Rose. She's not so great in this configuration. The scythe mode can be a bit much sometimes, so I need the alternative to be tighter so I can rely on her more. She shook her head to clear the thought away while her friend was here. Friends needed you to pay attention to them. So what's up? Oh, it's on. Naruto hesitated. I mean, it's not a big deal if you're busy, you know. Come on. You needed something if you chased me all the way in here. I know you aren't comfortable here, she said, putting her hands on her hips and pouting in what Naruto thought was an attempt at looking stern. Fess up, mister. Naruto put his hands up in surrender at the intimidating presence. I was just hoping you might help me improve my weapons. People keep telling me to get a better ranged option and. In an eye blink and a swirl of rose petals, the small girl was in his personal space and running her hands over the gauntlet pieces of Kichigiri. Like she had built them herself, she found the release for the claws and flipped it, flapping his hand to unsheathe them. Forget her pouty face, Naruto decided. This was intimidating. Next she examined the gun barrel, then took apart the magazine and crystal housing, all of it while it was still on his arm. Small caliber dust rounds crystal housing for the claws. That's pretty cool. Kind of wasteful though, she muttered. A ruby? Naruto asked, standing stock still. The girl looked up at him, back to the weapon she was halfway to disassembling, and nodded. Okay. Let's take it to a bench. She announced, leading him by the arm to a free work table. Take 'em off. She demanded. The boots are kin to my shoes right now. Shoulda thought of that before you got here. Take 'em off. Okay. Finding himself absolutely flummoxed that this girl most of a foot shorter than him was bossing him around so easily, Naruto stripped off the gauntlets and boots and set them on the table. Leaning over his boots and accidentally catching a whiff, Ruby recoiled. Sorry, said Naruto, scratching at his flattened ears with his now bare hands. We were training earlier and I really wasn't expecting to take them. Yeah, Ruby said, waving his apologies off as she got back to examining the boots. Pretty basic stuff in these. They don't even have the dust enhancement like the gauntlets. Wanna do anything more with these? I don't know. Naruto hedged. I mean, I don't really know what's possible for 'em, you know. Well, we could put in kick heels to help with maneuverability, a quick retractor release mechanism if they get stuck, even something simple like a heel blade, so back kicks are more deadly. Naruto understood what at least two of those things were. Maybe put a pin in those. I'm just looking to upgrade my ranged options, you know. Ruby hummed, returning to the gauntlets, though flashing occasional disappointed looks at the boots and their simple design. Well, I got good news and bad news. Bad news, Naruto answered firmly. And on a positive. The mechanics of the built-in firearm and the dust enhancement are all housed in the same containment for the sake of keeping her compact. We could replace the firearm for something with a higher caliber, but it would mean mecha shift parts. That means the gun would only be available in one form, the whole unit would be heavier, and we'd probably have to take out the dust enhancement. Doesn't Crescent Rose have a gun in both modes? Naruto asked. Ruby nodded in a side-to-side manner as if to say sort of. Crescent Rose is a gun in both modes, but a scythe in only one. Gotta make sacrifices somewhere. She was built around being a gun first with the scythe being a secondary weapon, she explained, also muttering, and as a stability aid. So what's the good news? Well, the dust enhancement you have now is actually kind of inefficient. Big crystal, not a lot of impact. Doesn't sound like good news. No. I mean you could do more with it. Ruby explained excitedly. Or maybe you could. Okay, there's two things we could try. We could try to add in a heavy weapon with the dust enhancement without sacrificing the current system. Or Ruby grinned in a hopeful way, we could refit the entire system and do something really fancy. Naruto had to admit, Ruby's anticipation was infectious. He didn't even use the electro claws anyway. Too scared to use them and waste the dust. Wait, wasn't Osmond still bankrolling him? Whatever. What'd you have in mind? Naruto asked, mirroring her smile. What do you know about dust pulse emitters? Absolutely nothing, but I'm willing to learn. The squeal Ruby let out could be described as pure joy. Okay, I'm gonna need to talk to an expert in dust manipulation, maybe get the school to order in some parts for you, research some public domain schematics. Oh, this is gonna be so much fun. Naruto had never seen anyone so overjoyed at being asked for a favor. Well, he supposed, this was probably one of her main hobbies. Tinkering with weapons, designing things. It brought him to an unexpected realization. He didn't really have anything like that, himself. He'd been just surviving for so long, and then when that wasn't the main concern it became training and studying instead. Russell had those journals he was always scribbling in, Carton had his comic books, Topaz had her charcoal sketching. Maybe he should look for something to do in his downtime. The field trip to Forever Full was quite underwhelming, all told. It was just a trip into an admittedly beautiful forest to gather tree sap. It wasn't entirely clear why. Presumably that would be explored in the next few survival classes. There was a minor grim scare. A single Ursa, nothing an entire class of Beacon students and two professors couldn't handle easily. Another day, another episode of drudgery and schoolwork and after-school work and studying and Naruto moaned, it turning into a gargling sound halfway through. Oh, quit whining, you big baby, Topaz chided as she cleared up the study materials from her bed and put them away, Russell doing the same across the room. Oog. Naruto repeated, clutching his head with both hands. Come on, dude, it can't be that bad. We've made great progress. Learning two things at once is such a cheat. Russell consoled. Yeah, but when they pop I get memories of 6 hours straight of studying in about half a second. Naruto groused. Not to mention trying to figure out these schematics Ruby gave me to look over. The door to the dorm opened, allowing Carden in. Hey. Nerd club over. Oog. Look, Naruto, if it sucks so much why not just have your clones raid the library or something? Topaz suggested in an attempt to be helpful. That way you can get a bunch of it done all at once. Naruto gave her a deadpan stare under his hands. This is how bad it is with 2 clones. 6 hours. I'm not looking forward to finding what 90 hours feels like, you know. Hey, just do what I do. Carden suggested, rolling onto his bed. Scrape by on DS for everything. Everybody should ride the D train. Topaz rolled her eyes. Trust me, Carden. Nobody wants to ride your D train. Bitch. The lady bear is called a so, actually. Topaz haughtily responded. If you're going to use animal insults, use the right ones. That's what the D train gets you. Eyes. Naruto whined. Let's go do something fun, you know. Like what? How the hell should I know? I lived in a hole for 4 years and then spent the last one living in books and training rooms and fitness centers. Naruto exclaimed in frustration. What do for fun? We do fun. We're fun b-head. Russell and Topaz shrugged at each other over their team leader, who had somehow been reduced to rolling around on the floor like a child. I guess we have been hitting it pretty hard lately. Russell admitted. Heroic. Topaz suggested with hope in her voice. No way am I listening to you murder achieve men songs for 2 hours, Carden denied immediately. Hey, I don't. You sing in the shower. Shoot. Curse my endearing devotion to the best boy band in the world, Topaz swooned dramatically back onto her bed. You know Big Brown is leaving, right? Carden asked tauntingly. You take that back. Topaz snapped at him. The achieve men will be together forever. She began to sob, not entirely clear if it was fake, at least, in my heart. Eyes. Phew. Naruto continued to whine. Oh quit it you big baby. Said Russell, prodding his team leader with a foot. Sighing, he suggested, how about the arcade? That Carden and Topaz said in unison. Naruto shot to his feet. That's not a no so it's good enough for me. To the arcade. He shouted, pointing dramatically in a random direction. Wherever that is. Rolling her eyes, Topaz led the way out of the dorms. Come on you big doofus. The foursome took the first bullhead available to go into Vale. Russell and Topaz were genuine locals so knew their way around the city. Naruto had only lived there for a year and didn't care much to get his bearings, and Carden was a fancy lad living in a fancy house in the rich part of town. Naruto was a little taken aback by the arcade itself. All flashing lights and cacophonous noise and hey, my coat glows in the dark in here. He exclaimed, somehow tickled by that. Pseudo-dancing games? The fleet-footed Russell suggested innocently. Carden the graceless tree of a human snorted. Yeah, no. Shooting games would suck, Topaz figured. We're all trained with guns. It'd be a cakewalk. Yaha, drawled Carden, who was not actually proficient with firearms. Fighting games. Russell and Topaz looked at each other. Fighting games. Naruto, who was still gawking at his luminescent coat, got dragged along to one of the more populated sections of the arcade. A maze of cabinets, about half of which were occupied on an early Saturday afternoon. And in pride of place in the middle of the section was a single cabinet, surrounded by displays of strobing lights. What the hell is this? Naruto asked as he stared at the game's logo imprinted on an electric sign. Vital Victory. Oh, I forgot about that part of it. Russell gasped as he saw the ostentatious display and something clicked in his brain. Naruto, dude, we need to do well in the tournament. What? Why? Naruto asked. Well I mean besides obvious reasons, why? You really did live under a rock, Carden smarmed. Under a hill, Naruto corrected. Same question again. What's the new reason we have to do good? Topaz rolled her eyes, because if we do good, we get put in the next edition of this game. Naruto's head tilted. Come again. Vital Victory is the official licensed game of the Vital Festival tournament. That means every tournament, they license the image and fighting styles of the trainee huntsmen and huntresses so they can be put in the game. We get to be in a video game. Russell crowed, interrupting the bear Fronis. Right. It's also a pretty big payday early in your career. The better you do, the bigger the payout and the more prominent role they give you in the game. Scrubs who get knocked out in the team rounds get 50-50 odds of even being included, Cardin continued, doubles gets you in the expanded roster, finals in the main roster. And they usually put the top 3 or 4 in the next game after that as a hidden character too. Okay? Said Naruto, getting some of what they were saying. Wait, I thought the tournament was every 2 years. Wouldn't we be in the next tournament anyway? PFFT, no, Cardin scoffed. Upper 2 years are too busy doing actual huntsman crap to be in the tournament. We get one shot at this, Naruto. Russell warned, we're getting in the next game. Naruto nodded agreeably. Oh yeah, I'm totally on board with kicking ass in the tournament. Just for non-stupid reasons. When do you start paying for your own dust again? Topaz asked, inspecting her fingernails. Naruto blinked at the reminder. Expensive dust. Big payday. Woo. Vital victory whatever. Hype. Video games are just the coolest and I totally want to be in one for. Save it for the PR crew, hype man, Russell said just as flatly. Come on, you might as well take a look at what you're getting into. The arcade ended up being something of a bust. It wasn't so much that it was a bad time. It was fun enough, but that was more for the company than for what they were doing. Even Cardin ended up being something closer to personable during the trip. It was just video games apparently weren't Naruto's thing. He suspected that it was because they didn't feel productive. Like what he was doing wasn't worthwhile, at least in his view of what that meant. Russ could have him as far as Naruto was concerned, they just weren't for him. After getting an early dinner from a fast food place, they took the bullhead back to Beacon. The rest of Team NCTR headed back to their dorm to do whatever they would do. But Naruto still felt restless for some reason. Like an itch in his brain that he couldn't figure out. So he tried to work off his nervous energy by jogging around campus. It didn't help. As he made one last loop around the main school building, Naruto sighed frustratedly at how dark it was getting, deciding to go back to the dorm finally. He just knew he was going to have trouble sleeping that night. But as he approached his room, he was blindsided by a swirl of rose petals landing right in front of him, forming into the panicking form of Ruby Rose. Naruto. Ruby? Naruto said, surprised. Are you okay? You look kinda freaked. Yeah. So some things happened today when we were in town and Weiss and Blake got into a fight and the babbling girl cut herself off. You know about Blake's thing, right? Yang said you might. How she likes fish and relaxing in a nice sunbeam. Naruto asked vaguely for the sake of anyone who might be listening before tapping his nose. Yeah, I know. Right. So, she and Weiss got into a big argument about that and the Schnee family and how they relate to that and then they got to arguing about teeth and… Wow, she was bad at speaking in code. And then Blake brought you up and Weiss really didn't like that and then Blake got really angry and blurted out that. And then she ran away. Naruto slowly nodded his head as he thought through that babble. So Blake bailed. We think she went into Vale, Ruby nodded. Pulling out his scroll, Naruto checked the time. Last bullhead was 15 minutes ago. Ruby nodded again, clasping her hands together. Could you, maybe, help us look for her tomorrow? Sure. I'll not get his team because they didn't know. Well, maybe Topaz did. Still, maybe best not. I'll help. Just tell me where to be. Nope. That day's trip into Vale already proved he didn't know where anything was. Second thought, if we could just meet up at the bullheads that'd be better. I don't know my way around Vale. Sure. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Naruto. She said, wrapping him in a hug. From an often repeated reflex, he wrapped one of his own arms around the smaller girl and patted her head with the other. Anytime, Ruby. Okay, she released him, I'm gonna go do I don't know what. Probably not sleep. But I'll let you sleep. Yeah. See you tomorrow. Naruto nodded and the girl, still filled with nervous worried energy, floated away in a whirl of rose petals. Oh, great. Now he's here too, Weiss sneered as Naruto approached. Nice to see you too, Weiss, Naruto answered, sighing. Why is he coming with us again? Blake is our problem, not his. Blake isn't a problem and I ask him to help because he can turn into 100 people. Ruby retorted. HMPH. I suppose a criminal would know best how to find another criminal. Unbidden, a growl rose up in Naruto's throat. For her of all people to try and judge him for that. Hands placed themselves on his shoulders and suddenly Yang was blocking his view of the Schnee heiress. Easy there, Broly. Weiss, we're not doing this again. Can you please stop picking fights so we can find our teammate? He heard Ruby say. HMPH. Fine. We good? Yang asked him. Yeah, he answered with a stiff nod. As the four got on the bullhead, the two sisters making sure Weiss and Naruto were on opposite ends, Naruto asked, so any idea where we should be looking? Ruby shook her head. No idea. She could have gone anywhere. We'll just be asking around for if anyone's seen her. The ride in the small airship was short, it being a small, safe hop to and from beacon on the cliffs and the city below. On landing, Naruto made 5 clones and had them spread out, heading in random directions. "Why only 5? Yang asked. "What do you think would happen if 100 identical faunas suddenly appeared and started tearing through the city?" Naruto asked flatly, watching the clones disappear into the distance and around corners before making 5 more. "Yeah, good point," Yang admitted. "That'd probably cause problems if a human did it too." "Notice you felt you had to add probably there," Naruto pointed out, sending a third wave of clones. Yang shrugged awkwardly, conversations like these being fairly new territory for her. She felt like she'd be having more of them now that the truth about Blake was out there. "Okay. We'll ask around near the Bullhead dock for if anyone saw her," Ruby announced as their opening plan. "Cool. I'll scroll call you if I find her," Naruto promised. With that agreement, the 3/4 of Team rwby started wandering through the city knocking on doors, leaving Naruto alone to finish sending out clones before heading into the city himself. Funny thing about sending 100 identical people to search for one. They'll probably see you before you see them. And so Naruto got the memories of a clone that spotted a fleeing Blake and some guy with the absiest abs Naruto had ever seen and of their general direction. And so did all of his clones. As the closest clone to her tried to cut her off in an alley it said, "Blake, if you pop me you're just," before she quickly popped it in the face with a punch, destroying it. "Telling me where you are." Finished the next clone entering the alley a few meters further down. "What do you want, Naruto?" Blake asked harshly. "Your team's worried about you, Blake," Naruto said soothingly before thinking better on that sentence. "Most of them, at least. But you probably already knew that part. So they told you I was in the White Fang," her tone containing a note of hurt and betrayal as she put a hand on her weapon, Gamble Shroud. The clone blinked. Then blinked twice more. No. Actually Ruby checked if I knew you were a faunus and said you argued with Weiss about the White Fang. Though that does explain her bitchiness a little." Looking down at the cat faunus's hand on her weapon he reminded, also, still a clone. "Though if you want the real one," he trailed off, making a turning gesture with his hand before popping. "Hey, Blake," spoke the same voice from behind her. "Dude, your semblance is nuts." The other blonde boy with a monkey's tail exclaimed. Glancing at the boy with the abs, Naruto raised his eyebrows. "Who's Captain Crunch's supposed to be?" "Hey, man." The monkey faunus greeted, waving a hand before putting both of them behind his head in a relaxed pose that opened his shirt more to better show off his abs. "Name's Son. So are you guys dating or?" "I can't go back yet, Naruto," Blake said firmly. "Well that's putting me in a tough spot, you know." Shrugged Naruto, "Why not?" "I can't face them yet. I need to prove Weiss wrong. I need to prove the White Fang aren't doing something so pointless as petty theft." "Why?" Naruto asked, deep confusion plain on his face. "Because I need to prove they aren't just thugs and terrorists. That they stand for something more than just hatred and violence." Confusion made way for sheer disbelief. "Wah, something more than Blake, are you talking about the same White Fang that opened up on a crowd of civilians in the middle of a civil rights rally? Because that's the one I know." "That's not possible." "I was there." Naruto shouted at her. "Hell, Topaz was too. She dragged me up to speak because she thought I was a huntsman and then some asshole in a Tajitu mask showed up and lit up the crowd with a minigun. So, sorry but you're gonna have a hard damn time if you want to convince anyone that the White Fang stand for anything anymore. They shot up an event for their own cause." "Then prove it." She shouted back at him, "We're going to find the White Fang and find out what they're really up to. If they're as bad as you say they are, help us find them." Taking a calming breath and wiping a hand across his face, Naruto tried to straighten out her plan. "So you're telling me you ran away from your team, hung out in Vale overnight and are trying to hunt down murderous terrorists. And your only backup is Vale's national sit-up champion." "Actually, I'm from Vacuo." Son interrupted with a raised hand. "Well, Vacuo by way of Mistral. See, I lived in Vacuo but went to study at Haven." "I don't care." Naruto. "No, Blake, look, they're your team. They won't just turn their backs on you because you have extra ears." Naruto blinked and smiled. "In fact, I'll prove it," he exclaimed as he pulled out his scroll. "Naruto, don't do it," Blake warned, seeing that he was calling the rest of Team rwby. "I'ma do it," he said, tongue poking out as he tried to figure out group calls. Gamble Shroud whipped out and struck the scroll in Naruto's fingers. And then he was smoke. Another Naruto walked around the corner, scroll in hand. "Yeah, that wasn't the real me either. Hey Ruby. I found Blake. She wants to rumble with some terrorists or something." "What?" Came the high-pitched voice of Ruby, even higher from shock. "Where is she?" "Oh, yeah, sorry she's right here with me and she's probably gonna run if I tell you where, you know." There was a beep from the scroll as Weiss's picture lit up. "Hey Weiss. Do you hate Blake now?" "What? Of course not. Why would you even ask that? Came the voice of the heiress. I'm mad she ran and I want an explanation of her past affiliations, but I'm not so shallow as to hate her just because of that. Weiss, Blake said, surprised at the understanding coming from the girl. And also deliberately ignoring Naruto's increasingly smug expression. Blake. Weiss exclaimed before instantly turning remonstrative. Where have you been? Do you have any idea the trouble you caused running off like that? Ruby has been worried sick. I'm sorry, Blake said remorsefully, but some of the things you said, I couldn't just ignore them, so I had to prove the White Fang could still be what I remember it as. Well, it's fine now. Where are you? Let's all meet up and go back to Beacon. I can't do that. What? Why not? Asked Ruby. Yeah, so, Naruto began, cutting into the conversation, Blake really wants to go after these guys. Even recruited some weird guy with abs for some reason. Dude, there's more to me than just the abs. Their stupid open shirt begs to differ, Naruto sniffed. Anyway, she really wants to do this and I don't think you're gonna convince her not to. So maybe her team could back her up. Weiss audibly scoffed over the call. That's ridiculous. We can't just involve ourselves in such things. We'll do it. Ruby's voice cut in. Ruby, what? If that's what it takes for Blake to come home, we'll do it. Naruto's entire face flexed in satisfaction and he started hip thrusting in celebration, pointing aggressively at his scroll. What's going on? I'm hearing some weird sounds. Nothing, Ruby. Just some static or something, Naruto covered. Blake giggled into her hand. Okay, you've convinced me. Great. Ruby squealed. Let's meet up. Where are you guys? Blake nodded at Naruto, giving him permission to tell her. Naruto in turn shot her a look of confusion. What? I don't know this city. Where the hell are we? But you said. I say a lot of things, you know. What if Naruto has a fox family in rwby? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.